They are not operating as a single family, though. They have folded themselves into a colossal entity together with other families and organizations. Over 100 chiefs strong, and the Ye family that Xiongha belongs to is inside it too. That entity calls itself the Alliance of Alliances, and the whole of it has already begun mobilizing toward Dark Island. In the Bake family hall, a white-bearded old man in a white martial arts robe sits in a grand armchair with his eyes closed, resting. 3 meters in front of him, a middle-aged man in a dark traditional jacket delivers a report, saying that Baekhyun is out of contact again and must have entered Dark Island with his teammates. He will probably not take part in the Alliance of Alliances operation at all. With one less main combatant, the Bake family's share of the spoils is likely to fall sharply. The old man opens his eyes at that, and a sharp light crosses them before it retreats and leaves them old and cloudy again. He says the child has been unrestrained since he was small. It is no wonder he gets along so well with that girl from the Ye family, because old man Ye must be nursing the same headache right now. He decides to let the boy be. Young people have to get a bloody nose before they recognize their own immaturity, and this one will understand soon enough. A small workshop will always be a small workshop, and set beside the power of a large organization, it is nowhere near enough. One day the boy will carry the family's rise and fall on his own shoulders. Then he orders a reply sent to the Alliance of Alliances headquarters, saying the Bake family will field 4 participants. The middle-aged man in the dark jacket answers respectfully and leaves at once. The old man is left alone in the hall. He sighs softly and rises out of the armchair. He says his children and grandchildren are unworthy, so he will have to take matters into his own hands and stretch his muscles. On a black island in a distant sea, a factory covering several thousand acres occupies the exact center of the island, and the roars of wild beasts pour out of it without pause. Inside, the whole building is packed with blood-colored cultivation tanks and petri dishes. Wild beasts of every race, after modification upon modification, have been twisted into things that are terrifying to look at, some of them frankly grotesque. Those deformed beasts are what this flesh and blood factory produces. A cold, iron-blooded middle-aged man in a dark green military uniform and a black-green peaked cap walks the floor inspecting the work. Every time a mutated monster on the production line lets out a sound miserable enough to raise the hair on most people's necks, a small arc curls at the corner of his mouth. He is enjoying every second of it. He mutters to himself that the forces the organization needs are almost ready, and that the invasion can begin. Soon the grotesque monsters are being loaded one after another into alloy cages made of some unknown material, roaring furiously as they go onto the trucks and airships and get hauled away. While the other major organizations are still busy preparing, I have already arrived on Dark Island, and Baekhyun and the other 3 teleport into my area to join me. Baekhyun has picked up his mandatory monthly mission by now, and his is to collect 100 different materials from the different world, which is another simple one. Mine is still the hardest of the 5 by a wide margin. I do not spend much energy on it. To judge how hard conquering an orange-level world will be, I first need to measure the strength of a red-level world. More importantly, conquering the red one will teach me the basic rules a different world runs on. The 5 of us stand together in front of the guiding stele, and that draws a lot of eyes. All of us are wearing mask-like items that blur our faces, so nobody around can probe our information. I nod to the 4 of them without saying anything, and take the synthesized red world beacon out of my storage ring. That pulls in a great many more stares. The crowd noise sharpens at once. People marvel that somebody has already assembled a complete world beacon this fast, and somebody else points out that with 5 people and only a red beacon it is perfectly normal. A third voice openly wonders whether we are still recruiting. Several of them start drifting toward us, and then the 5 of us simply vanish off the spot. The complaints follow us into the air behind. One man curses that he never even got aboard, and another sneers that 5 people conquering a different world will regret it soon enough. A third tells him to stop being bitter and go collect his own fragments. The crowd chews on it for a moment, then goes back to its own business. What happened on our end is simple. I used the red world beacon at the guiding stele and immediately got a prompt asking me to select the individuals who will enter the different world. I select Baekhyun and the other 3, and they each receive a confirmation of their own. As the 4 of them agree in turn, the 5 of us disappear from Dark Island under the power of the red world beacon. Our consciousness drops into a chaotic space where we cannot perceive time or space changing at all. The red world beacon spins out a red light shield that wraps around all 5 of us, and we fly on and on through the chaos inside it. That shield has to be the beacon's power at work, both protecting us from whatever this space would do to us and steering us toward the different world. None of us can speak. None of us can move a finger by an inch. All we can do is keep our eyes open on a monotonous nothing. After an unknown stretch of flight, a black hole appears ahead of us. I take it for the entrance to the red-level world. The moment it opens, the shield carrying us accelerates hard and drives us straight at it. Then, as we close in, the black hole erupts with a powerful repulsive force that shoves back against our entry. The pressure coming off it is almost solid, and every expression in the shield changes at once. Our heads cannot turn, but our eyes meet, and every pair of them is uneasy. This is our first crossing into a different world through chaotic space, and the unknown has always been the worst part. Getting jammed at the doorway would mean dying trapped in this chaos, which would be a genuinely ridiculous way to go. Then the red light shield flares with a strong glow, and the repulsion from the black hole weakens sharply. We take the opening and plunge through, vanishing out of the chaotic space. The shield that carried us and shielded us across that gulf seems to have burned the last of its power, fighting the repulsive force, and it disappears without a trace. Its job is finished. Under its protection, all 5 of us have traversed into this red-leveled different world. The instant we pass through the hole, time and space come back under our control. Our bodies wake up, and we can breathe and move freely again. I pull in a deep breath, and find it comes hard, which makes me wonder whether this world runs on very little oxygen. Then my body starts dropping, and the fall gets faster by the second. I open my eyes to find myself at an unknown height with white cloud in every direction. It is thick enough to hide where I am, thick enough that I cannot even spot Baekhyun or the others. I am free-falling under this world's gravity with cold wind screaming past, and a layer of frost is forming on my face and in my hair. Frost forming on a human body means this altitude has to be tens of thousands of meters up. Free-falling from that height, an ordinary person without the strength to resist would be smashed into paste on impact. I am not flustered in the slightest. I can fly. I have several ways to fly, in fact. I can borrow the plasma ant's ability for magnetic levitation, or ride light wings formed by light healing ants, or simply summon the hover ant, my aerial bus, and take the easy option. I use none of them. I let my body keep falling under gravity while I read the place. Gravity here runs at about 1.5 times the Dark World's. The oxygen content is much higher than the Dark World's too. Even at several thousand meters up, it already sits close to Dark World ground level, which explains why the thin air at extreme altitude hit me so hard on arrival. Having taken the basic measure of this different world, I watched several figures punch down through the clouds into my line of sight. Baekhyun and the other 3. Flying downward under your own power burns a lot of stamina, so the effortless method is to free fall to a chosen height and only then use a flight ability to glide, decelerate, and land clean. It is faster and cheaper at the same time. The other 3 picked the same approach I did, and none of them is in any hurry to spend energy. The wind pressure at this speed makes talking pointless, so I only smile and gesture at them, and the 5 of us keep falling. Our altitude reaches 1,000 meters and our speed is enormous, and the vast blue ocean opens up below us. A golden magic carpet appears under Baekhyun, sinking sharply under the impact of his body before it steadies in midair. He works the carpet across to the rest of us and scoops us aboard one by one, and then it carries all 5 of us down at an easy pace. Only then does anybody speak. Baekhyun cannot contain himself and says the environment in this different world is genuinely good, far better than the Dark World's. I nod and agree with him. It is mostly ocean, with large land masses and islands, and a decent amount of green covering the land, and the whole thing looks somewhat primitive. It resembles Blue Star tens of thousands of years ago. Cheong-ha, breathing in that raw natural feel, says she finds it refreshing. She adds that if the environment is this primitive, then the creatures here may be weaker, which would make this red-level world a soft one. Will shakes his head gently and disagrees. He says we cannot measure a different world against Blue Star, because primitive does not have to mean weak, and there may well be powerful beasts here, or powerful plants. Even the lowest red-level world should not be soft. I nod and side with him, telling everyone not to get careless. The Dark World spent a long time preparing this and filtered the chief count down to around 6,000 before it opened the function, and nothing it builds that carefully is simple. Everyone nods at that because it is simply true. Every time the Dark World rolls out a new event or a new trick, it is looking for a way to torment us. Every time, a great many humans die for it. This different world will be no exception. Cheong-ha frowns and says she still has a question. The Black Tower's entry requirements and my mission both use the words conquer and invade, so our purpose in coming here is invasion. Why then are we given no information at all? How exactly is a successful invasion of a world defined? And how do we get home, since the red world beacon that carried us is spent and we cannot cross that chaotic space back the way we came? Her questions are my questions. All of us frown over them, and for a moment we are simply lost. We have serious strength between us, but without a clear objective, we would be wandering blind across an entire world and burning enormous amounts of time. Time is the one thing we cannot spare at this stage. Every minute, other chiefs in the Dark World are entering different worlds of their own to explore and conquer, and those people are our real competitors. Right as we are drifting, that familiar mysterious voice finally arrives, late as always, and this time it has a great deal to say. It announces that we have successfully infiltrated the different world, and that the will of this world finds us in 5 minutes and puts us under its suppression. We have also acquired a status called Dislike of the World Will, and our favorability among the creatures of this different world drops by 100 points. Then it lays out the scale. 5 invading chiefs or fewer suffer 10% weakening across all attributes, 6 to 10 suffer 15%, and 11 to 15 suffer 20%. Every additional 5 people past that adds another 5% of suppression. It notes that a rank 1 full tier above the world will grant exemption, and that otherwise no item in existence can reduce the suppression. The return condition comes last, and it is to defeat the world will's representative creature and take the world core. That is an exceptionally dense broadcast, point after point in a single run, and then it is gone. We are all still turning it over in silence when a pressure drops over the 5 of us and our bodies go abruptly heavier. Cheonga feels at the weight on her shoulders and says this must be the suppression the voice mentioned, and then it does feel like about a 10% cut across the board. I nod and confirm it, then restate the part that matters. Every 5 more chiefs who enter deepens the suppression, and the suppression cannot be offset by anything unless we stand a full tier above the world will. Those world wills are almost certainly at extreme tiers, so that exemption is not a condition we can even consider yet. Baekhyun says we got lucky that there are exactly 5 of us, since anything more would have weakened us severely. Then his eyes light up and he claps his hands together, saying he thinks he finally understands why the Dark World ran so many rounds of screening. We all turn to look at him, and he clears his throat and enjoys the moment before he answers. He says the answer is sitting right there in the world will suppression. I repeat the word suppression back at him. He nods and lays it out. According to the prompt, the more people who enter the different world, the harder the world will press us down, and the count is a count of chiefs, not of actual bodies. Our vassals can be shipped into a different world to fight through any number of teleportation methods, and none of them raises the suppression on us by a single %. If he is not mistaken, the Dark World filtered and slashed the number of chiefs and turned nearly everyone else into somebody's vassal for exactly this reason. It was making sure we could invade a different world at our maximum possible strength. The conjecture holds together, and the 4 of us nod along with it. I tell him his theory has merit, because that means every one of us can bring tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of vassals through. Then I add another factor. The world beacon we crossed on is probably not a common item even for the Dark World, and supplying the roughly 6,000 chiefs left is likely already straining it. If there were still tens of millions of chiefs, the resources would never stretch far enough. Cheongha agrees and says there should be something to that as well, then builds on it. Judging by how the Red World beacon shielded us across the chaotic space, she suspects each rank of beacon carries a hard limit on how many people it can carry. Our 5 did not exceed the Red World beacon's limit, which is why no warning ever came. She is right about the mechanics too. That protective shield was burning energy continuously the whole way across, and with a few more bodies inside it, the fuel might genuinely have run out. I tell them that a human wave strategy from the large organizations probably will not work at all, and if that reading is correct, it is enormously good for us. Something heavy thumps in the sea beneath the carpet. A barrel-thick jet of water erupts out of the sea and comes screaming up at the magic carpet carrying the 5 of us. For all its bulk, it is not slow in the slightest, and in the blink of an eye it is nearly on us, moving with enough mass and speed to flip the entire carpet over. Every one of us is strong enough to have felt the danger the moment the sea surface stirred, so nobody moves. We stay seated with our expressions unchanged as that water cannon, and cannon is the right word for it, comes up to meet us. Baekhyun owns the carpet, and all he does is smile faintly. He does not bother dodging and lets the cannon come. Then, an instant before impact, a golden light shield snaps into place in front of it. Solid as poured gold, it swallows the whole strike without shifting an inch. I say we have clearly been here too long, and the owner has come looking for us. As visitors from another world, we were marked by this place's true owner, the omnipresent world will, 5 minutes after we arrived. Along with that, we picked up hostile standing with every living creature in the world. We have been drifting slowly along at low altitude over open water since then. Enemies coming to find us is the most natural thing that could have happened. I look down at the sea and watch a huge whirlpool open at the exact spot the water cannon came from, and a thick black tentacle covered in suckers rises slowly out of it. The visible section alone runs 2 to 3 meters across, which means whatever owns it is a behemoth on a scale none of us can picture. Baekhyun takes the carpet up a little higher and studies the thing below with open interest. He remarks that the sea creatures here run much larger than the land ones, and asks whether we should take it down or go look elsewhere. It is not fully surfaced yet, but the pieces we can see add up to some kind of giant octopus. Reading its aura alone, its strength only reaches upper diamond rank. Upper diamond rank is nothing to laugh at, and a creature that size will soak a punishing amount of damage before it goes down. Not one of the 5 of us is skilled at naval combat, so fighting this thing on its own ground would be a chore. None of us is afraid of it either. We are agile enough that fighting or leaving is entirely a question of our mood. However troublesome the giant octopus turns out to be, It is nothing next to the dragon head giant wolf we put down, because legendary rank and diamond rank creatures are separated by a fundamental gap. I look the giant octopus over, stroke my chin, think about it, and shake my head. I decide against it, because we could kill it and there is no reason to. We are poor at naval combat and far better on land, and this thing is just a local drawn in by our aura, not a key character in anything. Better to save the energy and go find the world core. The others nod along, agreeing that the first move is to find a piece of land and then work out how to pinpoint the core. Somebody picks east, because there is a large mass of green vegetation that way and the land there should be wide enough. Decision made. Baekhyun turns the magic carpet east. It is only after the carpet is streaked away like an aurora and vanished that the monster under the sea finally climbs out of the seabed. It is a giant octopus running hundreds to thousands of meters long. Having finally adjusted to the surface pressure after its climb from the deep, it arrives to find that we are already gone, and it goes berserk. It whips all 8 tentacles, each hundreds of meters of muscle, down across the water and kicks up tsunamis in every direction. Once it is vented, it fixes on the direction we disappeared in, drops back under the surface and swims east. Riding Baekhyun's top-tier transport, we cross east at absurd speed, and in less than half an hour an unbroken sheet of green comes up in our line of sight. That green is forest, packed as densely as forest can physically get. Every face on the carpet lights up at the sight of land, and the carpet accelerates again and carries the 5 of us onto it. We step down and disembark, and the moment there is solid ground under our feet, we all let out a breath and relax. Baekhyun says that ocean made him dizzy, and that humans really are down-to-earth creatures at heart. He takes a deep breath and asks Seongha to feel the place out for us, since a forest this thick has to be holding a considerable number of monsters. She walks 2 steps forward, half squats and closes her eyes. Her palm goes flat on the grass, reaching for something none of the rest of us can touch. We stand there in silence, watching her with a certain amount of anticipation, waiting on her reconnaissance. About 3 minutes later, she opens her eyes and stands up. Baekhyun, out of patience, asks twice over what she picked up. Her face is serious now. She says there are enemies, an almost infinite number of them, and every one is coming straight at us. That fast. All 4 of us frown at once. Baekhyun puts on a mournful face and protests that we only just landed, and asks whether the locals have to be quite this enthusiastic about it. Only now does he really understand what a 100-point cut to favorability means. It is a blood feud in all but name. Nothing else explains that kind of madness. An entire world's worth of monsters sniffed us out and are sprinting at us from tens of thousands of miles away, and we have been on the ground for minutes. Fight or retreat. Landing somewhere and being swarmed immediately, with no idea where the real target even is a genuinely terrible feeling. The ground under our boots is already trembling faintly, and a low booming rolls in from the trees as countless monsters pound toward us. I think it through and make the call fast, telling everyone to prepare for battle. I tell them we are invaders, and the world will has already marked us. On the sea or on land, wherever we show ourselves, whatever is nearby will come running. Moving somewhere else buys us the same result in a different place, so we may as well fight where we can put out our maximum combat power. Will's face lights up with fighting spirit and he agrees, saying land is the best battlefield we have, and that we should fight. My own blood is up by then. I say that only by killing the world will's representative creatures can we take the world core, and a complete world is so vast that we have no way to hunt those creatures down. But these monsters found us under the guidance of the world will, so the more of them we kill, the more of the world will's weak points we expose. Rather than us going out looking for the representative creatures, we let them come to us. Baekhyun laughs and says there is no point overthinking it, since we just kill until the representatives show themselves. He is already eager, a golden light gate shimmering with treasure rising up behind his back. Will draws both bloodthirsty battle axes and stares toward the noise with murder in his eyes. 09 says nothing at all, just pats her chest, and a 100-meter alloy mecha unfolds in front of us. Her mecha looks different from the last time I saw it, the body that used to be pure silver now carrying a layer of black gold light down in the crevices. The galaxy must have improved a great deal since it fought the dragon-head giant wolf in the purple dungeon. As 09 climbs into the galaxy, Seongha moves as well. She raises her right hand and scatters countless plant seeds forward, and as they hit the dirt, a green light flashes out from her and settles over all of them. The seeds root, sprout, and grow at insane speed, running their entire life cycle in a minute or two, and arriving at full maturity. The variety in them is enormous. Towering trees, thorned vines, fruit bearers, and under her ability to vitalize plants, every one of them comes alive, branches and vines waving, ready to fight. She catches our curious looks and explains with a small smile. The plants native to this world hold 100 points of hostility toward her and cannot be controlled, but plants she grew herself do not fall under that rule. I had been quietly worried about her, and that worry goes away. Then the jungle empties itself at us. Beast monsters of every strange shape and size come pouring out shoulder to shoulder, surging toward the five of us with bloodthirsty, cruel, greedy, longing eyes. They look at us the way a starving man looks at the flesh of a soft-hearted pilgrim out of some old legend, a cure-all that adds 100 years to a life. I look at those eyes fixed on us like we are meat, and I snort. Then I pat the spirit-nurturing jar at my waist, and countless ant army with auras like pressure fronts appear in front of everyone and crush the beast's presence flat in an instant. I ask them who exactly the prey is now. I tell Swift Shadow that I do not like the way they are looking at us, and order them annihilated to the last one. She answers that she will, and drives the ant army straight into the monster horde. Baekhyun, Will, 09 and Chungha unleash their abilities at the same moment, and the wave breaks against us. The war between the five of us in an entire different world has officially started. A full hour goes by before any of us notices it. The ground is stained completely red, as though somebody rolled a thick red carpet over the whole clearing, viscous and soft and reeking. It is the blood of countless monsters mixed with the pulped flesh of the ones trampled by the ranks behind them as they kept charging in. Nobody has counted the dead, and nobody needs to. The state of the ground says everything about how badly they are being butchered, and still they come in waves, an hour of non-stop slaughter behind us, and no sign of an end to their numbers. Every so often I draw the Dragonbone warbow and put a Dragon Chi arrow into the thick of the horde, and the detonation clears a swath of them. Something about this is off though, and I frown as it settles on me. There are an enormous number of these monsters. Their quality does not seem to be very high at all. The longer I turn it over, the less the arithmetic works. If we had not run into that upper diamond ranked giant octopus out on the ocean, I would have accepted these land monsters as exactly what a red level world ought to field. But I saw the giant octopus, and measured against that, these beasts are pathetically thin. They are platinum rank at their absolute best, and most of them are nowhere near it. They do not match the strength of this world at all. That leaves me one comfortable explanation and one uncomfortable one. The uncomfortable one is that the world is spending garbage on purpose to grind our stamina down to nothing. Anything that reaches for a simple strategy instead of blindly hurling bodies at us has a working mind behind it. A mind that patient could bury its representative monster somewhere we would never think to look. Hunting a needle in a field of hay is bad enough on its own. Doing it while an endless tide of platinum rank meat chews at our reserves is not a fight I win by waiting. We have to force the issue before the arithmetic turns against us for good. My hands never stop working the bow while I think it through. I shout across the line to Baekhyun and the others that these monsters are effectively endless, and that grinding through them solves nothing. We need to take the initiative and locate the world will's representative monster ourselves. They break off from their combat rhythm just long enough to hear me out. Will wipes the sweat and the blood off his face and answers first, perfectly calm, saying there's always an end to any number of monsters. If the thing behind the curtain wants to wear us down to death, then we cut our way through and find out whose endurance runs out first. It is not an impossible method, it is just a reckless one, and I shake my head at him with more helplessness than I would like to admit. Then I take a proper look at his eyes, and they are red. Will is usually the coolest head on this team, so the impulse coming off him now is not his ordinary temper. Every ability he owns is tied to blood and slaughter. It would not surprise me if the package came with a side effect that turns him bloodthirsty once he is deep in combat mode. A boost like that lifts raw fighting power, but it quietly eats at judgment. Judgment is what keeps a team alive at the moment everything hinges on one call. I need to sit him down about it. For now the symptoms look mild, so it waits until the battle is over. I tell him instead that we have no idea what is coming next, that his plan is too risky, and that preserving our strength is the whole point. Then I turn to Baekhyun and ask whether he has anything better. He lights up the golden light array behind his back, sends streaks of gold sweeping through the monsters in front of him, and takes a breath before he laughs. He says that if the planet's own will really is trying to exhaust us, then all we have to do is refuse to let it get what it wants. Every one of these monsters costs this world resources to grow. If we can make the world will understand that it cannot shake us no matter how many it burns, it will not be able to sit still. I nod along. On the surface his idea sounds like Will's, but the difference underneath is enormous. The point is not to actually kill everything in front of us. The point is to make the world will watch its BC tactic fail to drain a single meaningful drop from us. Baekhyun laughs and agrees that is exactly it. He says what we need is a way to annihilate monsters at no cost to ourselves, purely as a demonstration for the thing peeking at us from behind the world. So I tell him that a man who frames a problem that neatly usually has the answer in his pocket already. If he does, he should stop being coy and produce it. He throws his hands up in surrender and complains that I have wronged him this time. He admits he does have an item that can do it, and that he was not hiding it out of spite. The thing can only attack, and it needs its energy topped up before it will do even that. As he finishes, something slides slowly out of the golden light array behind him. It has 3 long cannon barrels splayed apart from one another at roughly 120 degrees. Instead of wheels or a fixed mount, the base stands on 4 legs that end in hooves. Behind the barrels there is a wide open mouth. I have seen a great many strange items in this world, and this one is still the most abstract object I have ever laid eyes on. All 4 of us just stare at it. Baekhyun clears his throat and explains that it is a diamond rank item he picked up more or less by accident. It is a biological cannon, and it eats food to fire rather than burning conventional energy crystals. I ask, genuinely puzzled, whether eating means ordinary eating, and he nods and says it means ordinary grain and meat. I point at the ground, which is currently one continuous carpet of monster flesh and blood. There is more ready-made ammunition underfoot than any of us could carry. The thing should be able to eat while it fights, a perpetual motion machine that answers his own requirement exactly. He shakes his head and tells me it is not that simple. The biological cannon has to eat, then digest, then inject the digested energy into its barrels, and digestion is the bottleneck. Unless the fuel is very pure energy to begin with, chewing through plain meat takes a few minutes and buys only 3 shots. The efficiency is far too low to be called killing without loss. So, there is the catch, and he genuinely was not holding anything back. I frown and try to find another angle. Rotating the ants in shifts would cut our energy drain. With monsters packed this densely, though, a rotation cannot hold the whole line. Even weak monsters become a real problem the moment they get in among us. These things are not strong, and they are also not something I can afford to wave off. While I am still turning it over, Seung-ha speaks up. She asks Baekhyun whether a sufficiently pure energy source would cut the biological cannon's digestion time enough to let it fire continuously. He nods and confirms that digestion is the entire difficulty, then asks whether she happens to have a solution. She says she has a plant that might manage it, and that we should try. She lifts the storage ring on her hand as she says it, and several red seeds the size of glass beads fly toward the blood-soaked ground ahead of us. Green light surges across the field, and in the next breath red vines tear up through the earth. The vines start drinking the moment they surface, and they drink fast. Flesh and blood vanish off the ground into them at a speed that makes my eyebrows climb. What began as finger-thin runners swell to the thickness of water buckets within moments, tightening until they look ready to burst. They never do. The skin on them is tough enough to hold whatever pressure they are building. Cheong-ha catches all of us staring and explains with a smile. They are carnivorous blood vines, and they devour flesh and blood and convert it into the purest form of energy. Beyond that conversion, they have no combat ability at all, which is why she never bothered releasing them before. Paired with Baekhyun's biological cannon, though, they are exactly right. Then she adds, almost as an aside, that she owes most of her success with the carnivorous blood vines to Wang Heon. The biological genes he has been extracting under my command opened up whole categories of plants she could never have grown otherwise. It seems Wang Heon does considerably more work back home than he ever bothers to mention. I watch one of the vines draw out a fresh runner and slot it neatly into the open mouth at the back of the biological cannon. From there it simply keeps feeding, absorbing on one end and delivering on the other. It is an enormously powerful digestive system bolted onto a weapon that never had one. The cannon fills quickly. Then all 3 barrels spit out 3 red projectiles at once, fanned apart at that 120-degree angle, and the shots cross the gap in a blink. There is no grand explosion when they land. Only 3 muffled thuds at the front of the horde. The projectiles come apart completely, and the sky above the front rank turns into a curtain of falling blood. It sprinkles down across several hundred square meters. The monsters underneath it were red-eyed and charging straight at the 5 of us a heartbeat earlier. Now they stop as though a curse has been laid on them, then go down and start tearing at themselves with their own claws. Within moments they have shredded their own hides, skin peeled back and flesh exposed, still clawing. That is not even the ugly part. The monsters behind them do not slow down and do not care. They come straight over the top of their own writhing kin, with their big feet stamping down. In no time at all they have trampled everything inside those few hundred square meters into a flat carpet of meat. Then 3 fresh blood-red projectiles arrive, and the rank that just inherited the front line inherits the same fate as the rank before it. The cycle repeats itself with the calm regularity of a factory floor, and watching it work leaves all 4 of us a little unsettled. I ask Baekhyun what exactly is going on with his cannon and why the killing looks so strange. He explains that the projectiles are not ordinary energy rounds at all, but a neurotoxin. I repeat the word back at him, and he confirms it. This blood-carried neurotoxin causes an unbearable itch the instant it touches a creature's body, and the victims can do nothing except scratch themselves until they bleed out. It is vicious and bizarre with it. I did not expect that from a cannon with hooves. Reading our faces, Baekhyun keeps going with the disclaimers. The biological cannon is only a diamond rank item, and the toxin it throws is meaningfully effective only against creatures below diamond rank. Against anything that has actually reached diamond rank, the effect is limited. An itch on the skin, unpleasant but endurable, and no real handicap. Against human ability users, it is close to worthless, since spending a modest amount of spiritual power seals the effect off entirely. On top of that, the projectiles are large and not particularly fast, so they are not hard to avoid. He sums it up as a god-tier item for bullying anything weaker than its user. It is also only practical where the enemy is packed shoulder to shoulder. Add the slow digestion, and without Xiongha's carnivorous blood vines, it would be a completely useless lump of metal. I nod at that because the limitations really are numerous. The reason this is working so beautifully is nothing but timing, terrain, and cooperation lining up at once. Still, I tell him there is no such thing as a useless item, only an item that has not yet found its situation. What makes the difference here is his ability to haul an absurd number of things around with him. Almost nobody goes to the trouble of carrying thousands of items on their person. Baekhyun is not almost anybody, and today that pays for itself. Fed continuously by the carnivorous blood vines, the cannon keeps firing and harvesting the front of the horde shot after shot. The 5 of us have a cliff several hundred meters high at our backs, an open sea beyond it, so nothing can come around behind us. The handful of monsters that slip past the cannon's kill zone get taken apart by my ant army before they reach us. Between the two, we are suddenly free, so we sit down on the carpet Baekhyun rolls out, and we have a picnic. He decides it is nearly mealtime, that we have fought long enough to deserve a break, and that we should eat to get our energy back. He passes around pastries baked by a chef in his own territory, a man descended from a line of royal pastry makers back on Blue Star. He is insufferably proud about how authentic they are. There is juice too, pressed and processed by tree spirits, and it is genuinely good. The 5 of us eat like we are on a day trip, with an army of monsters 20 paces away. That finally is what the world will cannot stomach. The frenzied assault slows, then stops, then begins pulling back. Out of the retreating mass, 10 monsters come forward, wildly different in size and species. Wolf-shaped, tiger-shaped, elephant-shaped, and stranger things beside them, and every one of them carries an aura that makes the horde behind it look like livestock. The biological cannon has just finished charging again, and 3 blood-red projectiles streak out toward them. As the rounds reach the 10 heads and begin to burst, a toad-like monster fires out a long blood-red tongue, and licks all 3 out of the air. It swallows them whole. By then, we have all read the aura properly. They are standing at the upper diamond rank peak, right up against the line without crossing it. Baekhyun lets his breath out and says with some relief that at least they are not legendary rank. He says it a beat too soon. A red ring of light blooms under the feet of all 10 monsters at once. Their auras climb with it, and they cross into legendary rank in front of us. Baekhyun's voice comes out somewhere between a squeak and a curse as he asks whether this is a joke. 10 legendary level monsters at once. A moment ago he was dismissive, and he had reason to be. 10 upper diamond rank peak monsters are not a crisis. He and 09 went with me to that island to clear the purple dungeon, and inside the instance core there were hundreds of that caliber. Thousands even. We handled it. Legendary rank is a different conversation entirely. The upper diamond rank peak and the legendary rank look like they are separated by a membrane. Once that membrane is pierced, the creature on the other side lives in an entirely different world from the one it left. One stands in heaven and the other stands on the ground. Baekhyun is thinking about the dragon-head giant wolf in the purple dungeon's instance core, the one that crushed him flat with a single claw. The memory has clearly soured in his mouth. The rest of us are not much better. That toad swallowed 3 neurotoxin rounds and showed no reaction whatsoever, savoring them like candy. Those rounds instantly kill platinum rank monsters and noticeably inconvenience diamond rank ones. Only something legendary could treat them as a snack. Baekhyun asks me what we are supposed to do, in his most mournful register. 1 legendary level monster already left us in a sorry state, and although we now have Cheongha and Will with us, the enemy count has gone up tenfold. I frown, and what I feel underneath the frown is oddly close to relief. I tell him it is a good thing we came into the red level world first. Anything higher would have thrown us into a situation we are flatly not equipped for at this stage. We are here to invade this place and take its most important world core. Of course it fights us to the death. Of course it spends everything it has to manufacture legendary rank creatures. Still, the strength of the different world has badly outrun my expectations. I came in assuming a red level world would be mediocre, and the first stretch of it obliged me with monsters that barely deserved my attention. Now I am looking at 10 legendary level monsters in a row with red halos flickering under their feet. The pressure rolling off them says something I should have worked out earlier, so I say it out loud in a low voice. The Dark World's own will keeps us permanently in competition with each other. It did not open the channel into the different world until now for no reason. We are barely scraping past the threshold that lets us enter the lowest level world there is. That tells me how badly the Dark World wants the resources on the other side. None of its chiefs may have reached the legendary rank yet. Only the very top ones, carrying trump cards and tricks, can barely put down a legendary level monster at all. It herded every last one of us onto Dark Island anyway, and forced us through with mandatory quests. That is not confidence. That is desperation. Then the rest of it clicks. The different world is a screening tool. You find out whether an animal is worth feeding by putting it to work, and the chiefs who survive an invasion and keep growing are the ones the dark world actually wants. The rest are chaff it can afford to lose. I do not get to finish the thought. The 10 monsters, motionless since their promotion, come at us all at once with no warning. I call for battle stations and tell Swift Shadow to take command, and she answers at once that she has it. My hands are already up, the dragon bone warbow drawn and swinging across the 10 of them. I keep talking while I charge the shot, because morale is a weapon too. I tell them not to panic, since these 10 only cross the line by leaning on a red halo the world will hand it them. They have nothing in common with the dragon head giant wolf we met in the Purple Dungeon's instance core. That thing carried black dragon bloodline and sat stably at the legendary mid-tier, and counterfeits are not worth being afraid of. I hear Baekhyun's breath come back to normal behind me. In this team, I am not only the heaviest hitter but the one they take their reading from. A confident voice from me is worth more than another arrow. Their fighting spirit relights, and all 4 of them set themselves for the clash. The 2 sides hit each other in the same second, and my ant army takes the front. Facing legendary rank creatures head-on, most living things buckle before contact, instinct dragging their combat power down through simple terror. Ants do not have the nerves to produce fear. They are iron-blooded machines that do not know what death is supposed to feel like, and they go in as hard as they always do. The 10 monsters live up to their new rank regardless. One collision sends dozens, then hundreds of upper diamond ranked black scythe hunting ants tumbling back tens of meters with real injuries. Yellow-green fluid leaks from their mandibles. Against these things, my black scythe hunting ants look like toys with no ability to resist at all. And I smile, because that is exactly what I wanted to see. I tell Baekhyun these monsters are nowhere near the dragon-head giant wolf, and that this is a battle we win. If that wolf had made the same collision, my black scythe hunting ants would not have bounced away with minor wounds. They would have been crippled or simply erased. All 10 of these creatures together did less damage than one of that thing, which settles my nerves considerably. Baekhyun and 09 both saw the dragon-head giant wolf with their own eyes, so they spot the same tell, and their confidence doubles. Which is, of course, when the sea explodes behind us. The sound comes up from below the cliff at our backs, enormous, and it turns all 5 of us around at once. Behind us is several hundred meters of sheer rock with nothing but ocean under it. My first instinct is that nothing can come from there. My second instinct arrives half a second later and corrects the first one. A cliff of a few hundred meters is no obstacle to a sufficiently powerful creature. The sea is not remotely safe either, and we have already met the thing that lives in it. I roared everyone to defend. By then, the wave is already over the cliff top and still climbing, past 1,000 meters, leaning toward us like a mountain deciding where to fall. It carries enough force to erase the entire ledge we are standing on. I was careless, and I understand my mistake in the same instant. The 10 monsters did not attack immediately after their promotion because they were waiting. The giant octopus we left far behind us in the water was never behind us at all. The plan was always for the 10 to hold our front while the sea cut off our retreat. Caught in that pincer, with their numbers on top of it, their individual weakness stops mattering. A wave 1,000 meters tall is not something a diamond rank creature produces. Either the giant octopus has been upgraded as well, and it is standing on legendary rank now. Cheonga says out loud what everybody is thinking. That strengthening 10 monsters was apparently not the world will's limit. She thought the 10 were the ceiling, and the world will had one more card and played it while we congratulated ourselves. Her hands are faster than her shock. As the wave reaches its peak, blotting out the sky and beginning to come down, she flings a handful of seeds out in every direction. Brilliant green light pours off her along with a thick, living smell of growing things, and the light swallows the seeds where they land. They shoot up to full maturity in an instant, 20-meter trees ringing the 5 of us. Their broad, glossy leaves knit together overhead into a single enormous umbrella. The thorn growth she planted earlier climbs the trunks at the same time, coiling and lashing them into one structure. It is not enough on its own and she knows it, so she shouts to Baekhyun to brace the inside of the leaves with a shield-type ability. He is quick about it. Light flashes at his back, and a golden light formation arcs up under the canopy in a dome, several thicknesses of heavy, oily leaf layer over it, and the whole thing becomes one green umbrella the size of a house. They finish just as the wave arrives. I recalled every ant into the spirit-nurturing jar while the 2 of them were working, so all I can do is stand under that canopy and watch with my jaw tight. Water is a gentle thing until it is not. A wave of that mass, carrying the potential energy of a 1,000-meter fall, lands on the green umbrella with the weight of hundreds or thousands of tons of steel. Cracks split across Baekhyun's golden light shield on the first impact alone, and that shakes me more than the noise does. One strike should not do that to his work, and the water does not stop. It comes in wave after wave, not a single blow but a sustained hammering. Baekhyun pours power into the shield with his teeth clenched, mending the cracks as fast as they open. The waves come faster than he can repair. This is not a casual ability. It is a long-planned finishing move from a legendary rank giant octopus, and after 3 or 4 consecutive impacts, the golden light shield simply shatters. That leaves nothing between us and the sea, except a canopy of freshly grown leaves. Tender leaves like that should not survive one wave, let alone the next. I am already reaching for the spirit nurturing jar, ready to throw the ants up as a physical wall. 09, Will, and Baekhyun are all bracing their own methods for impact. Seungha does not brace. She looks up at the sky with a perfectly serious face and gently opens her arms. A green sapling drifts out from her chest and rises toward the leaves overhead. Green light detonates through the canopy, and the leaves change while I watch, evolving and mutating and growing in the space of a breath. They swell to more than 10 times their size, the veins running through them plate over in gold, turning dense and unreasonably tough. The wave comes down onto them and bounces. It hits like a body hitting a trampoline, gathers itself, leaps and gets flung away sideways. It goes straight toward the side of the field where the 10 legendary level monsters are standing. Water is supposed to be the softest thing there is, and Seungha's leaves turn out to be softer, which is exactly how they break it. The 10 had been enjoying the show, waiting patiently to walk in and eat us once the sea knocked us flat. They watched their teammates' carefully accumulated finisher come back over their own heads instead. Their expressions go from spectator to catastrophe in about 1 second flat. They turn to run, and the wave runs faster. It swallows them whole. They fight it with everything they have and get battered senseless by the successive impacts anyway. Down under the sea surface, the giant octopus is tired. That wave was its trump card, hoarded and released at the perfect moment, and putting it into the air has burned more than half of its combat power. It has earned the right to be tired. It shadowed Baekhyun the whole way while he carried us flying toward the land. Along that route, it absorbed every scrap of blessing the world will had left over, which pushed it past legendary rank and up near the edge of legendary mid-tier. It is meaningfully stronger than the 10 fresh legendary creatures on the cliff. It is also not worried in the slightest. It hauls itself up the rock face at a leisurely pace, entirely confident, already picturing the scene waiting for it above. Its 10 companions have surely torn the invaders apart by now, possibly dismembered them and started eating. The giant octopus intends to make those 10 cough up every delicacy they have swallowed. It did the heavy lifting and made the decisive contribution, and it is not letting a pack of good-for-nothings walk off with the meal. Leisurely or not, those long thin legs cover ground fast, and it reaches the top of the cliff in no time at all. Then the giant octopus sees something that looks like a hallucination. Its mouth falls open into a wide circle, and it stares at the land above the cliff without moving. The whole ground has been shattered by the waves, littered with broken timber, churned to mud. Scattered through the wreckage are the 10 monsters who received the world will's blessing alongside it, each one in worse shape than the last. They are still breathing. Almost everything else about them is gone, and nothing remains of the presence they carried when they stepped out of the horde. Beyond the 10, standing untouched in the middle of the ruin, is a huge green umbrella built out of thick leaves. As the giant octopus is still trying to assemble a coherent picture, the umbrella begins to open. The 5 invaders the world will marked are standing inside it, entirely unharmed. The giant octopus's eyes narrow, and comprehension arrives late and hard. Its guaranteed killing blow did not scratch the enemy, and it very nearly wiped out its own side. The creature falls straight into doubting the premise of its own fishy existence. Then it thinks about what failing to eliminate the invaders is going to cost it. The shiver that goes through it nearly sends it headfirst back down several hundred meters of cliff. We come out from under Cheongha's umbrella into all of that. There is a dazed giant octopus at the cliff edge, 10 legendary rank monsters flattened in the middle distance, and the 5 of us without a scratch. We only ever intended to survive the ambush. Nobody planned this. Baekhyun is delighted enough for all of us. He crows that the damned furball came here to ambush us and went home with less than it arrived with. It knocked out its own companions in the process, which has saved us an enormous amount of work. I agree that it is a very pleasant surprise, then tell him we cannot afford to relax. There is no telling what else the world will has stashed away. The enemies in front of us are weakened right now, and that window closes. I pat the spirit-nurturing jar at my waist as I say it, and let the ants back out, everyone I pulled in to spare them the waves. Thousands of diamond-rank main battle ants pour across the broken ground, toward the 10 gasping legendary rank monsters, moving under Swift Shadow's command. The 10 were lying down on purpose, playing dead to buy recovery time. With that many ants bearing down on them, playing dead stops being an option. They scramble up on whatever they have recovered, which is not much, and force out their skills to meet my ant army. The collision is loud enough to shake the cliff top. My aunt's combined abilities meet the abilities those 10 representative monsters drag out of themselves, and the whole exchange vanishes into a cloud of dust. The wind-up here is strong. The dust clears in a blink and the 10 are still standing, dirty and unmarked. That combined strike thousands of ants at once did not do them any real damage at all. 10 legendary rank creatures in a weakened state are still 10 legendary rank creatures. I do not let it worry me, and I make sure the others can see that. I tell them that during the exchange my sentry ant read the state of all 10. Their energy levels are under 30% of peak, and they are running on the last of what they have. A few more attacks finishes them, and after that the only representative monster left is the giant octopus. That lands well. The 4 of them had been rattled by 10 monsters shrugging off thousands of ants, and my reading puts them back on solid ground. The giant octopus is stronger than any of these 10 alone, but with no numbers behind it, it cannot hold out against all 5 of us. The first battle of our different world conquests is about to close out cleanly. So they prepare, all 4 of them at once, eyes on the 10 broken bodies in front of us. Kicking a man while he is down does not appear to trouble anybody. Baekhyun calls up his king's treasury and makes 10,000 treasures unite. 09 fires her galaxy-compressed energy laser cannon. Will sets the mark of the beast and calls the hunt, while Cheongha runs life enhancement and drives an ancient wood lance up out of the ground. They are 4 attacks chosen for the best balance of lethality and speed, launched while the iron is hot. All 4 converge on 10 monsters cut precisely between spent strength and strength not yet recovered. They pour down like spilled mercury one after another, and there is nothing calm about the way the 10 receive them. Protective skills shatter. The monsters are torn open to the edge of death and slammed flat into the ground. Baekhyun hoops, out of breath and thoroughly pleased with himself, and Seungha and the others allow themselves a smile. I am not smiling, and I am not watching. Wounded to the brink is not dead, and I have no intention of handing 10 legendary rank creatures a dying surge. I open the heart of the Lord and pull the strength of thousands of ants into my own body. My arms swell as I haul the Dragonbone Warbow back into an arc of nearly 90 degrees. Dragon Chi arrows generate along the string one after another, and I keep pouring energy in until there are 10 of them, each thick as a spear. Only then do I stop. I level the bow and let it hang in the air in front of me, aimed down at the 10 sprawled bodies. There are 10 Dragon Chi arrows for 10 heads, matched 1 to 1. At the cliff edge, the giant octopus feels the energy of that draw and understands the danger at last. It roars and throws itself toward its wounded companions at full speed. My arrows are faster. The string vibrates once, and all 10 leave at the same moment. The giant octopus scrambles across the broken ground with its eyes gone bloodshot, and it is far too late. The Dragon Chi arrows arrive together and strike 10 heads almost simultaneously. The explosions run into one another as a single rolling roar, and every one of those 10 heads comes apart. What is left standing is 10 headless bodies twitching along reflex arcs that have not caught up with the news. That is 10 legendary rank representative monsters killed in a single volley. The giant octopus stops halfway across the field and stares at the corpses like a creature waiting for someone to explain. Baekhyun nearly falls over himself, giving me a thumbs up, demanding to know when I learned to fire 10 arrows at once. He tells me that if the archer from the old legend, the one who shot the extra suns out of the sky, had owned my technique, Blue Star would never have seen daylight again. I laugh at the exaggeration and shake my head, because it is a minor trick. The Dragonbone Warbow unlocked it after it leveled the diamond rank on the Dragonhead Giant Wolf's death and absorbed the wolf's Dragon Chi. All it requires is enough energy poured in to generate multiple arrows at once. There was no skill in that volley whatsoever, only brute force. I spent that much on 10 dying creatures out of pure respect for the legendary rank, and the respect turned out to be justified. At least 3 of those 10 were carrying last-ditch counterattack abilities. My arrows were simply too fast and too heavy, and all 3 were scattered before they could use them. That leaves the giant octopus, and I find myself curious about what happens after we kill it. It is the last representative monster on the board. I look at the thing standing frozen out there, radiating a distinctly unintelligent air, and I cannot keep the smile off my face. I cannot promise with total certainty that the world will has nothing left, but the odds are good that this was the ceiling of a red-level world. I say as much to the others. What this world will has already put on the field is exaggerated enough, and if it still has trump cards, the universe is simply being unfair. Beyond that, we are under time pressure and the world will has no way of knowing it. Faced with invaders coming for its core, a mind of limited intelligence throws everything it owns at the problem. It reaches for a permanent solution and keeps nothing back. Which means that once the giant octopus dies, there's a high probability we take the world core of this red-level different world directly. We finish the mandatory mission and go home to the dark world. That gets the reaction I expected. Baekhyun demands to know what we are waiting for and proposes we roast the big squid and be done with it. The golden light formation behind him blazes, and precious items surface inside it while he is still talking. Xiong Ha, Will, and 09 start charging as well. Even all 5 of us at full power will not kill something sitting near legendary mid-tier in one stroke. Grinding it down is well within reach though, and none of us doubt it. We charge, and we fire. Inside a handful of seconds, the other 3 complete their attacks, and the giant octopus does not move. It does not dodge, and it does not shield. It stands where it is and takes all of it head on. The roar and the sheet of blood and fire coming off its body wipes out our view of it completely. We cannot see its condition, but judging from the impact alone, the result should be excellent. Baekhyun calls the hit, then wonders aloud whether the big squid has given up resisting. It has watched its companions die and realized it cannot stand alone, and he reckons a few more like that will send it after them. He is ecstatic and already winding up the next one. Cheongha and the others are just as optimistic, lining up to finish the last representative monster and close the mission. I have no smile left at all. I am frowning at the shape inside the flames, and something about this is badly wrong. This creature is the world will's representative, an existence built to fight us to the death. There is no version of that which includes standing still and taking punishment. Every living thing carries a ferocious survival instinct. The world will is not flesh and blood, but the consciousness of a planet, and no intelligent existence gives up on staying alive. Surrender like this is not in the design, unless the world consciousness genuinely has one more card. The giant octopus starts making a long series of mournful cries while I am still turning the thought over. Then its 8 long legs brace hard against the ground, arch, and launch it into the air. In flight, it spreads its entire body out flat like an enormous flying pancake. The shadow it throws covers the 5 of us along with several thousand square meters of ground. It looks like a vast mouth or a vast sack coming down to swallow everything underneath it. I ask, out loud and not calmly, what kind of move this is supposed to be. It appears to want to eat all of us in one bite while making itself the easiest target on the continent. Then all of us catch up at once. Spread out like that, it has exposed its soft underside. So this is not a trap, but an opening. At the speed it is coming down, we have time for several full power strikes before it lands. Then we simply walk out from under it. I call for concentrated fire, 3 volleys, and get a shout of agreement. 5 of us unload 3 consecutive skills into the flying pancake. The giant octopus's abdomen comes apart into a bloody ruin, bleeding heavily, some of the worst hit sections nearly punched clean through. It is seriously wounded this time. Even something approaching legendary mid-tier cannot absorb that many blows in that position. The results are good, and it is still falling, still spread wide open. We board Baekhyun's magic carpet and clear the shadow before it arrives. The giant octopus hits the ground behind us with a roar, and its open body blankets several thousand square meters. That is precisely the battlefield we have been fighting across all day. Under it lie broken trees, flattened scrub, rock, a thick carpet of flesh and blood from tens of thousands of monster corpses, and 10 headless legendary rank bodies. All of it disappears beneath the giant octopus. All of it goes into its stomach. We are safe on the carpet, and nobody looks happy about it. That was not a simple attack, and every one of us knows it. Baekhyun stares at the giant octopus, whose belly is now distended into an enormous ball. He asks how one big squid can eat that much and whether it is worried about killing itself through sheer gluttony. I tell him to be careful. That attack was slow and never really threatened us, which means the giant octopus deliberately ate everything we threw at it just to buy time. Swallowing the battlefield cannot be the whole of it. There is another trick coming. I barely finish the sentence before the giant octopus produces an enormous long rolling sound, and it comes out of that perfectly spherical belly. It is the noise of a stomach that has not been fed in days. After swallowing an entire battlefield that should not be physically possible, my expression gets worse. I cannot work out what it means, and I do not stand around trying. I draw and notch an arrow aimed squarely at that round belly. I tell the others I have a bad feeling and that the thing is clearly brewing something. We should put it down right now while it cannot move. Baekhyun answers that we will blast its giant stomach open together, and the golden light array unfurls behind him. Xiongha and the others stack up their energy alongside him. 5 short seconds and everyone is ready at once. One shared look, and we strike together into that swollen belly. The giant octopus is too bloated to do anything but sway slightly, and it takes the whole volley square in the gut. Fire and smoke scatter outward and swallow most of its body. I call for more, because none of us can see it inside the smoke. We keep hitting the same place over and over, and on a target that size there is no chance of missing. Another string of roars rolls up as the follow-up volleys land. The smoke thickens until the giant octopus is completely hidden inside it. Only then do we ease off, pull back to a distance, and watch quietly for the smoke to clear. Baekhyun points out that we have hit it an absurd number of times. Even a legendary mid-tier existence taking that head-on would be crippled, and the big squid has not even reached legendary mid-tier. He is right, on the face of it. The gap between legendary rank and diamond rank is enormous. Even so, a legendary rank creature that stops resisting entirely and lets diamond rank attackers work on it is not invulnerable. Formidable is not the same as invincible. Unless the creature is a defense specialist with defensive passives layered on, not even a legendary upper tier body absorbs that much punishment quietly. A legendary mid-tier one certainly does not. The unease sits in me anyway, and I cannot pin it to anything. I put a great many arrows into that belly and I felt every one of them bite properly. By any reasonable accounting, the giant octopus should be down to its last breath. The smoke starts to thin. It does not clear entirely, but enough of the giant octopus surfaces for us to read it. The tentacles and body are wrecked, whole sections nearly severed and hanging on by a thread of flesh and fascia. It looks exactly as wretched as Baekhyun promised it would. He is insufferable about it immediately, reminding me that he told me so. The big squid took everything 5 of us had at point-blank range, and no carbon-based life form survives that. He adds that if it had, the universe would be neither scientific nor fantastical, which is his way of refusing the alternative. Seong-ha lets herself look relieved, a small smile surfacing. Is that really all it was? A creature makes that much noise and that much effort just to stand there and let us kill it. I frown and keep frowning, and I cannot find anything wrong with the evidence in front of me. The facts are laid out plainly, and the giant octopus is shredded and finished. Then Will says, flatly, that something is wrong. We all turn. His gaze is locked on the center of the giant octopus's belly, the part still hidden under the last of the smoke, and his face has gone very hard. He tells us his perception of a creature's energy intensity is extremely strong, and that he feels no death qui off this octopus at all. What he feels instead is a wave of new life, an aura, and it is climbing. Will's whole ability set is built around beasts and blood, so when he reads an aura he is not guessing. If he says it, it is true. Every one of us follows his eyes, and at that exact moment the wind takes the last wisp of smoke away and hands us the belly in full. Baekhyun asks what that is, and I have no answer for him. The giant octopus's grotesquely swollen belly has been ripped completely open, its organs strewn across the ground. Inside the cavity sits an enormous ball of flesh more than 10 meters tall. It throbs steadily, brimming with vital force, plainly nurturing something, and a strange aura comes off it in waves. Baekhyun swallows hard, lips twitching, and asks what in the world this thing is. A giant flesh ball inside a giant stomach strikes him as some kind of nesting doll. I look at it, and the wrongness finally resolves into a shape I can name. I tell them, we have walked into a trap. Baekhyun asks what I mean by a trap, and I lay it out for him in a low voice. The giant octopus swallowed every monster corpse on this battlefield, which means it wanted to digest every monster corpse on this battlefield. Those corpses were not only tens of thousands of platinum rank and below, they included 10 legendary level monsters. The energy sitting in that pile is beyond enormous, and digesting it unaided would take the creature a very long time. So it did not resist us. It let us hammer it because the damage we dealt was doing the digestion for it. Every strike converted all that mass into fuel for whatever is growing inside the flesh orb. They are startled, and then they follow it. There is no other explanation for a legendary level monster passively eating punishment it did not need to eat. Baekhyun manages a wry smile and admits, with the air of a thoroughly defeated man, that everything we just did accomplished nothing. Worse than nothing, in fact, since it actively helped that giant stomach lose weight. Nobody enjoys working hard on the enemy's behalf. I am not especially dejected about it, though, and I tell him our attack was not wrong in that situation. Whatever is inside that orb, we kill it with everything we have and move on. There was no version of that moment where we held back. Legendary level monsters are not innocent rabbits, and if the giant octopus had been charging an ultimate skill instead, failing to interrupt it might have wiped the party. Run that scene again, and I still order the same volley. What we do not do now is anything rash, because the last thing I want is to accidentally feed the thing in the orb. Sitting still is also not our style, so while the creature has not been born yet, we work. I tell everyone to set up any defensive type item they own right now. The moment the thing hatches, we launch a combined offensive. Baekhyun starts hauling out peculiar objects by the armload. Will produces a bottle of purple liquid and casts it toward the orb. Seong-ha scatters a handful of red seeds, and thick thorn brambles come up and weave toward the flesh orb. They stop short of touching it and close overhead into a solid red cage. She tells us they are blood-sucking thorns, tough beyond ordinary measure, and that anything brushing against them starts losing blood immediately. 09 sends up a flight of small robots with battery-shaped devices strapped to their backs, and they take station in a ring around the orb. She explains that they are electromagnetic pulse bomb robots, and that they release electromagnetic pulses on command. I am not about to be the one who contributes nothing, so I bring out the card I have been sitting on since we entered this world. A huge hover ant drifts into position above the flesh orb and opens its abdomen. The load inside it is a mass of fiery red ants, packed together like a crate of red spheres. They are 500 diamond-rank self-destruct ants, cultivated steadily through Mars at enormous expense, and I have not spent one this whole campaign. I shake my head at myself as I set them. I had wanted to bank these for the higher-level different worlds later on, and apparently a red-level world is not something I get to underestimate. Full commitment it is. All 500 are chained together in sequence. If they go off simultaneously, even I cannot fully predict what the chain detonation does. After every major battle I have fought, I have still never fired this many at once. Behind them I stage a second team as backup. 200 clear ants accumulated through patient cultivation. Clear ants have never had a dazzling moment in any battle of mine, and that is not the same as being useless. Either the fight was simple enough that raw force settled it, or I had too few of them for their effect to register. The purple dungeon battle against the dragon-head giant wolf was the second case, since nothing with that kind of bloodline notices a handful of clear ants. This time is different. 200 diamond rank clear ants stacking their psychic attacks generate mental interference even a legendary rank creature cannot simply ignore. It will not overwhelm anything at that level. Interference is all I needed to do. I lay out my reasoning while I work. I do not know what rank the thing inside that orb will be, but the giant octopus was almost at legendary mid-tier. It spent this much energy and effort on the pregnancy, and nothing simple comes out the other end of that. I expect peak legendary mid-tier at minimum, and legendary upper tier would not shock me. A creature at that level has a savage instinct for danger, and will not stand obediently waiting to be blown apart. Xiongha's cage and the rest of the arrangements are not enough to hold it on their own. Add 200 clear ants scrambling its head though, and it should eat the full force of the self-destruct ants before it understands. Another enormous sound rolls out across the field, while we are still setting up. The flesh orb, ringed by everything we have staged around it, suddenly expands. It was 10 meters tall, and it tenses and swells and gains a full 5 more. It bulges like something on a countdown, terrifying energy fluctuations pouring off its surface. My eyes narrow and I shout at everyone to retreat. We are already 1,000 meters clear on Baekhyun's magic carpet, and looking at that thing 1,000 meters is not clear at all. Baekhyun reads it as fast as I do. My word is barely out of my mouth before the carpet is running at top speed, and he puts several thousand more meters between us and the orb. Then the flesh orb detonates. Fragments of flesh and blood blast outward in every direction at a speed that shreds everything near it. Several thousand meters of retreat does not put us outside the envelope. The fragments come after us like bullets, hunting the carpet, and I call for defenses. All 5 of us are quick enough, and we throw up everything we have and beat the barrage off. Only once the shooting stops do we get a look at what the blast did to the ground we left. Every arrangement we staged around the flesh orb has been torn apart and rendered essentially worthless. My self-destruct ants and clear ants were thrown more than 1,000 meters into the sky by the shockwave. If the hover ant had not slammed its hatch shut in time, that blast might have cost me over half of both units. Even with the hatch closed, the hover ant took the brunt of it and is now badly wounded and wobbling in the air. If it were not an ant bred for defense, with layered fat across its belly that soaks impact through sheer resilience, it would have come down in pieces. The creature has done nothing yet but crack its own shell. That is what its birth cost me. Then a voice tells us we are intruders, and that we have disturbed the divine. The words land like a struck bell and keep ringing, echoes stacking until my eardrums bulge and ache. That is its ordinary speaking voice. All 5 of us turn toward the source, toward the thing that just climbed out of the flesh ball. The moment we see it clearly, a chill goes straight down my spine. It is not fear of the unknown. It is that the shape in front of us is genuinely appalling to look at. The creature stands about 12 to 13 meters tall, a giant next to a human being, and nothing remarkable next to plenty of things we have already killed. Size is not the problem. It has human-like limbs and stands upright, and its body is not built from bone and muscle and skin. It is built from monster corpses compressed and packed together to the absolute limit. Every corpse we killed and the giant octopus swallowed has been reused as raw material for this piece of artwork. Tens of thousands of platinum rank and below monsters make up its flesh. Diamond rank monsters make up its bones, and the 10 legendary rank monsters make up its organs. Its head is a lion-type legendary rank monster crushed into a sphere with its own head parked at the center. The effect is impossible to describe and worse to look at. Baekhyun says out loud what all of us are thinking. Even after his biological cannon ate a great many of those corpses as ammunition, the remainder was astronomical, and all of it has been folded into a single deformed monster. He calls it completely unscientific and demands to know since when you can mash corpses together and have them come back to life. He cannot stop clicking his tongue at it. I have seen zombie aggregations before, and this is not one. The aggregations the green-robed youth used to build ran entirely on biological viruses and were never truly alive, just walking corpses on strings. He was the man competing with Chung-ha for the top spot in our region, and his work never amounted to more than that. This thing, compressed out of countless dead bodies, carries a life force I can feel from here. It is not a puppet. Whatever made it was performing an act of creation, and that is not a word I use lightly. I keep my voice level and tell them the truth as I understand it. Under normal circumstances, this would be impossible. Coming from a world will, it is not even surprising. A world will is an extremely special existence, a form of life outside the categories we use, and some of its methods cannot be judged by common sense. That said, an undertaking on this scale should not be cheap even for a world will. This deformed monster is its last move, which makes it the true and only representative monster of this world. Baekhyun's face lights up and he asks whether the whole battle ends when this thing dies, and I nod, because it does. If we put it down reasonably fast, the whole operation will have taken less than half a day, which is absurdly efficient. I am not fooling myself about why. This particular red-level worlds will happen to be far too eager to come at us, and it went all in without holding anything in reserve. A more intelligent world will, or a higher-level different world with better methods, would have produced an entirely different outcome. Searching for a world core across an entire different world could easily eat 10 days to half a month, and nobody would call that slow. The fighting is wearing on everybody, but I carry a mandatory mission on my back, and the sooner this trip ends, the better I sleep. The deformed monster picks that moment to inform us that we are damned invaders who dare to disregard the great god. It had watched our initial shock and been rather pleased with itself. Then we started chatting amongst ourselves and critiquing its construction like art students at a bad exhibition. The humiliation of that has its voice shaking with rage. Baekhyun curls his lip at it and does not bother lowering his voice. He tells the thing that calling itself a god is comedy, and that it should take a good look at its own hideous face. He adds that anyone who worships a god whose strength tops out at legendary mid-tier deserves to be laughed at until they expire. The sarcasm goes straight through whatever passes for the deformed monster's composure. It cannot get a sentence out, its aura climbs fast, and its lion head goes red as a boiled lobster. It manages 2 syllables of protest. Baekhyun cuts across even that, telling it to surrender obediently and stop wasting everybody's time, since we have another engagement to get to. The thing steering this puppet is the world will itself. As the consciousness of a fairly primitive world, it is simply no match for Baekhyun's mouth. 3 or 4 lines and it is speechless, which appears to bewilder it. A world takes millions of years to develop a will, and in all that time this one has certainly met other invaders. None of them were as much trouble as us. They were either put down easily by its subjects, or folded the moment it frightened them a little. This round, it has met its match. I tell Baekhyun not to get careless anyway. The deformed monster may only be in the legendary mid-tier realm, but it stands at the peak of that realm, one step from the legendary upper tier. That is not weak. On top of that, it is fused with an enormous number of monster corpses, which means it may have inherited abilities we cannot predict. He nods and grins, and tells me he knows perfectly well, and that he provoked it on purpose because he cannot stand the sight of it. He says the thing is ugly and weak and still putting on airs, and that looking at it for any length of time makes him ill. He claims it is causing him mental pollution and that his sanity has taken visible damage. His final position is that corpses belong in the ground rather than dancing around in the open air. We should hurry up and dispose of it. I nod, watch the deformed monster's aura climbing in the distance, and give the one-word order to move. Every one of us lets go at once and the battle starts. Streaks of energy tear across the gap toward the deformed monster and are about to land. Before any of us can enjoy it, the creature's abdomen splits open into a gaping maw and swallows the entire volley. Its belly makes one dull thud. Several powerful attacks go down its throat, and it stands there looking completely undamaged. Baekhyun frowns and says he has seen that ability somewhere before, and then his eyes light up, and he has it. That damage-absorbing trick belongs to the toad-shaped monster from among the 10 legendary-level monsters earlier. He did not expect the abilities of the corpses this ugly thing was mashed out of to transfer along with the meat. He admits, grudgingly, that it has something going for it after all. Will's brows draw down as he works through the implication out loud. If the transfer holds, then this deformed monster has mastered the abilities of all 10 legendary-level monsters, which makes things considerably trickier. Cheongha takes it a step further. The abilities may have come from 10 legendary-level monsters, but those 10 were only legendary lower tier, and this thing's raw strength sits far above them. Every ability it borrows will come out stronger than it ever was in its original owner's hands. She suspects its raw strength might reach the legendary upper tier. My own expression goes grim at that. I have spent enough battles measuring myself against the legendary rank to know it does not obey the rules the earlier ranks do. From black iron all the way up to diamond, two creatures of the same rank in different grades are never separated by very much. At the legendary rank, the gap between a single small grade exceeds the gap between two entire major ranks lower down. If this deformed monster really has legendary upper tier strength, we are in serious trouble. I have to keep reminding myself that this is only the representative creature of a red level instance. I shake my head and tell them it should not be that high. We have never actually laid eyes on a legendary upper tier creature, so everything we think we know about that level is guesswork. Whatever it is, it dies today. Baekhyun agrees, serious now, and points out that we are standing on someone else's ground. Every extra minute here works against us. The deformed monster finishes booting up its new body while we are talking. Its legs spread to brace, its lion head tips forward, and it puts a roar into us that has nothing casual about it. Its ordinary speaking voice already had our eardrums aching, and a dedicated sound wave skill is another category entirely. Sound wave attacks are a very awkward thing to defend against on short notice. None of us are ready. It goes straight through us, and every one of us ends up doubled over in pain with blood trickling from our ears, noses, and mouths. Baekhyun wipes the blood off his lip and bellows for everyone to gather on him. Under that sound, none of us can hear him properly. We have fought together long enough that a single glance carries the whole instruction, and we push through the pain and close on him. Golden light flashes, and a bronze bell comes out of the formation at his back and drops over all five of us. The instant it seals, the lion's roar is gone. It is so completely gone that if our eardrums were not swollen and bleeding, we might believe we imagined the whole thing. I tell him I did not expect him to be carrying something that good, and that he just saved us. He waves it off and says it is nothing of the kind, that it defends against sound wave attacks and nothing else. Beyond being a bit sturdy, it would be useless if that ugly monster were not screaming at us. He is being modest with his mouth and enormously smug with his face, and I smile and let him have it. Cheonha produces 5 glass bottles of emerald green liquid and hands one to each of us. She tells us to drink immediately, because it is a special recovery potion made by the tree spirits. Nobody argues, and we knock them back in a single swallow. The cool of it spreads out through my limbs, and 10 seconds later, every injury the sound wave did to my body is simply gone. I ask her whether a potion that strong is very precious. She shakes her head, smiling, and says a potion that does its job at a moment like this has already paid for itself. Outside the bell, the deformed monster watches us disappear into a bronze shell it does not recognize. It works out that its sound waves are not getting through, and comes to the correct conclusion about its lion's roar. It roars in fury instead, lifts its right foot, and stamps. The earthquake that follows shakes a solid bell, 5 meters tall, clean off the ground. We ride the momentum out of it on the magic carpet and are already airborne when the shaking peaks. On the ground it would have thrown us flat and possibly dragged us down under the dirt. I frown at what a casual skill from this thing does. That was the elephant monster's ability from among the 10, and coming out of the deformed monster it hits several times harder than the original ever did. We cannot let this continue. We need an opening and a killing blow to put into it. Everyone nods, because everyone can feel it. Every ability it throws leaves us scrambling to answer, and scrambling is a losing posture. We have already fought through several major battles today. If we never take the initiative back, it simply grinds us down until we are too tired to stand. Baekhyun tells me to give the orders and says they will all follow whatever I decide. Will and the others nod heavily, all of them looking at me, and I nod back and take the weight of it. Killing a legendary mid-tier existence in a single stroke is something only my self-destruct ants can do. That means everyone else has one job, which is to keep the deformed monster fully occupied. The self-destruct ants have to land on it cleanly. It must not spot them coming, and it must not have room to evade. Done properly, that is one blow and one corpse. Then I tell them the plan, and they listen and they nod, and we start moving. The plan takes shape in the space of a breath, and not one of us wastes a second putting it into motion. Will, Baekhyun, Cheonha, and 09 spread out around the deformed monster and box it in from 4 sides, and every one of them opens up at full strength with nothing held in reserve. Blood shadows, golden light, whipping plants, and gunfire come down on the thing all at once, spilling over it the way mercury spills across flat ground. From the other quarters, my thousands of diamond-ranked black scythe-hunting ants pour in like a black tide, their scythe-shaped mandibles closing on its legs, one pair after another. Behind them, the smaller companies work just as hard, plasma ants and light healing ants and tunneling ants numbering in the hundreds. Some fire skills into the gaps, some lay healing on the wounded, and some cut side tunnels to drag the crippled ones out of reach. The cooperation between my people and my ants runs like a machine built to tolerance, every part timed against every other. The whole of it rains down on one target in an order nobody has to be told twice. An ordinary creature could not survive this. Even a proper legendary rank creature, hit from every side at once by attackers standing at the peak of diamond rank, would be pulped where it stood. The deformed monster is not ordinary, of course. It sits at the very top of the legendary mid-tier, with one foot already lifted toward the legendary upper tier, and even so, the sheer suddenness of the assault stuns it flat. That is the whole reason the opening works. The deformed monster is not really a creature at all, only a shell running on biological instinct, and the thing steering it is the world will of this different world. The world will holds the highest and most sacred seat in its own world, but it has never once been in a fight. It cannot make sense of why the invaders who looked so timid a moment ago are suddenly hammering it with everything they own. Its body is another matter entirely, flesh compressed out of tens of thousands of monster corpses until it is harder than diamond steel, and against most attackers that alone would end the argument. Against thousands of peak diamond rank ants and 4 of the strongest survivors humanity has produced, hardness is not enough. Its body starts to come apart under the volume, skin splitting, blood welling up out of the cracks and running down. The world will scream that this is blasphemy of the rankest kind, and its fury spikes hot enough to feel from across the field. Since the day it came into being, every creature in its world has knelt to it as creator, and it does not think of that as arrogance. In its own perception, it is the world entire, the one and only true God of heaven and earth. Then a pack of invaders walks in from somewhere else and beats that god with obvious enjoyment. The world will stop cycling the borrowed abilities of the 10 legendary rank creatures it swallowed, and reaches instead for the deformed monster's one native skill, Life Burn. The ability burns life force to lift every attribute and every state of the body at once. On any normal creature it would rate as a decent burst option, the sort of trick you keep for a desperate hour because the cost eats you alive. Nobody uses it long, nobody uses it often. On this thing the math breaks completely, because the deformed monster is a combat shell the world will built to be spent. Its body is stitched from tens of thousands of corpses, which means the life force stored inside it is obscene. A last-ditch trump card for anything else becomes something it can run for as long as it pleases. That is not a difference of degree. The deformed monster stops fighting back and simply stands there, letting skill after skill hammer into it. A wet, bloody haze climbs up out of its whole body, and inside that haze, its aura climbs with it, until the air around it warps under the weight. Baekhyun and the others have no idea what it is doing, but nobody with working eyes could miss that the thing has gone abnormal, and is building towards something enormous. Baekhyun shouts that the ugly thing is clearly up to no good, and tells them to pile on while it is still standing still. He doubles his own rate of fire to make the point. Will and the rest match him, throwing everything they have into the window. Baekhyun adds that they cannot let it wreck my plan and that it has to be pinned exactly where it is. Under that kind of pressure, the 4 of them find another gear. Speed and intensity both climb past where either had been, and squeeze to the edge of what they can do. Several of them actually crack something open mid-fight. Baekhyun notes, half to himself, that his understanding of strength seems to have gone a shade deeper, and the joy shows on all 4 faces at once. Their confidence surges. They do not get long to enjoy it. The deformed monster finally lets life burn off the leash. The bloody haze bursts outward from its body with a low, flat detonation that lands more in the chest than the ears. Every split and crack in its skin closes and firms up again. The aura that comes off it is so terrifying that the attacks of every person and every ant in the ring stutter to a halt on their own. Baekhyun and the others look at a monster that seems to have come fresh off the assembly line, and the weight on all 4 of them doubles in a heartbeat. Its aura has grown by an ugly margin. A moment ago it stood at the peak of the legendary mid-tier with 1 step left to take, and now it stands somewhere higher than that. Cheonga frowns and says the thing out loud that all 4 of them are refusing to think, that its strength may have already crossed into the legendary upper tier. The legendary upper tier is a different conversation, and however little they want to look at it, that is the reality standing in front of them. Baekhyun swallows, his throat gone dry, and asks nobody in particular whether this is even right, because as far as he remembers, they entered a red-level world, not something worse. Baekhyun wears the face of a man who wants to cry and cannot find the tears. Going into a red-level world, they had braced themselves for what an entire world could put on the field, and they thought they had overestimated the difficulty of fighting a world by a comfortable margin. Then a legendary upper-tier monster at nearly full strength walks into view, and the bracing falls apart. He wants to know what this is supposed to be, that a red-level world ceiling is already the legendary upper tier. He asks what orange and yellow must hold if red is already this, and what sits at the top of a purple dungeon. He asks whether they can even make it to the other side. Cheongha's patience runs out, and she smacks the back of his head. He yelps and demands to know what that was for. She reminds him who was thumping his own chest in front of me a few minutes ago, swearing up and down that he would nail this deformed monster to the ground. She asks why he has gone so limp now. Baekhyun rubs his skull, pulls a face, and laughs that the mood had gotten too heavy and he was only trying to lighten it. He asks whether she does not know him by now, whether she really thinks he could be a coward, and declares he would sooner die in the fight than fold. Xiongka concedes that she knows he is tough and that the monster is about to move, so they need to go all out and buy me more time. He tells her to leave it to him. The deformed monster stamps the ground and opens a crater in solid earth. That body is over 10 meters tall, and it moves with an agility no shape that size has any right to, flashing straight into the middle of the antlines. Blood energy rolls off it, and as far as anyone can see, it is not using a skill at all, or else it is using one that shows nothing on the surface. Fists and legs are enough. It goes through the black scythe hunting ants the way a tiger goes through a pen of sheep. Every time one of those fists lands, there is a roar, and a steel-hard carapace caves into a crater. The black scythe hunting ant is built to take punishment, so it does not die outright, but it is left in critical condition on the edge of death. The light healing ants can hold the thread of its life together and nothing more. Getting it back into the fight in any useful window is not happening. Berserk, the monster is fast. In a handful of seconds, more than a dozen black scythe hunting ants go sailing away, critically wounded, combat power gone. The ants are huge and their shells are hard, so when they are launched at that speed, they travel like cannon shot. Anything they clip on the way picks up an injury of its own. Within a very short time, the ranks are salted with wounded that nobody hit directly. The deformed monster shows no sign of drain at all. It is entirely at ease, and that is what makes it obscene. Baekhyun swears and yells at everyone to push harder, warning that at this rate my whole ant army gets erased. All four of them throw their full kits at the thing. Against that speed, almost nothing connects, and the few skills that do land seem to cost it nothing. The men and women who had been riding a breakthrough high a minute ago sink hard. None of them show it on the outside, and none of them stop swinging, but the shadow sits there behind their eyes. Baekhyun thinks privately that this intensity is far past the dragon-head giant wolf they fought in the purple dungeon, and that comparison is not a small one. The dragon-head giant wolf was only legendary mid-tier, but it carried a powerful bloodline, and the purple mist of the purple dungeon amplified everything it had. Taken together, it stood far above an ordinary legendary mid-tier creature, near the ceiling of that whole realm. Before Lifeburn, the deformed monster was actually a step below the dragon-head giant wolf. After going berserk, it is not in the same conversation, its strength surging past that wolf by a distance nobody wants to measure. Baekhyun lets one more thought through, that if the legendary upper tier is already this bad, then whatever sits at the mythical rank must be an actual god. Only a few seconds pass in the real world, and another dozen black scythe hunting ants are broken. There are too many critical cases arriving too fast, and the light healing ants start falling behind the curve. Black scythe hunting ants begin dying outright. Baekhyun watches the thing ignore 4 human beings entirely so it can butcher my ants, and he loses his temper. He roars at it to come hit him instead, calling it every rotten name he can reach. The deformed monster does not appear to hear him. It keeps killing. Then Baekhyun catches the look in its eyes, mocking and amused, and the meaning lands on him all at once. It is leaving them alive on purpose. It intends to strip my ants down to nothing in front of them so the 4 of them can watch. The despair has to set in properly, so they live in fear for whatever time it decides to allow. He tells it not to get cocky too early. His eyes flick down to the ground for half a second, without him meaning to, and then he throws himself back into the fight. The deformed monster, carrying the world will and back in the Lifeburn state, gets worse. 1 punch per ant stops satisfying it. It begins cycling the signature abilities of all 10 legendary level monsters it devoured. And not just the signatures either, because it has every minor trick those 10 ever owned. Its toolkit turns absurdly broad. Under wide area attacks, the individual injuries are actually lighter, but the ants start dropping in sheets, falling more than 10 times faster than before. The light healing ants have fired light healing ray more times than anyone counted, and their reserves are scraping bottom, the strength of each beam down near its floor. The lightly wounded get no treatment, and lightly wounded turns into out of the fight anyway. In the space of a breath, most of my ants are gone. What is left with any combat power is a few hundred black scythe hunting ants and a handful of support types that were never on the front line. 200 or 300 black scythe hunting ants is 1 or 2 area skills away from nothing. The deformed monster reads the board the same way, and a cruel, triumphant smile crawls onto its face. Everything sour in it is swept out and replaced by an exhilaration it cannot describe. Standing there as the victor, it looks at the 4 trembling humans and asks whether weak mortals dare face the divine light of a god. Then it announces it will bestow death upon the 4 of them. It is halfway into moving when something snags. 4. It stops and questions the number, because there should be 5 invaders, not 4. The answer arrives from below. An enormous surge of energy erupts out of the deep earth and comes up at a speed that does not permit reaction. Standing directly in its path, exactly where it has held its ground this whole time, is the deformed monster. That energy is hundreds of diamond-grade self-destruct ants going off in the same instant, several linked abilities feeding into one another and stacking as they go. The number packed into it is grotesque. Whatever the tier, whatever the pedigree, if it is carbon-based life, I am confident I can blow it off the map in one shot. I am 1,000 meters underground when it happens, in a damp, black hollow with the walls sweating around me. 10 meters over my head, a wide passage runs dead straight up until the end of it is out of sight. The walls of that passage now look like glazed glass, scorched smooth by something that came through hot. That was the blast, riding the shaft upward, vitrifying stone on its way past. I stand there watching the passage with my stomach in a knot. Once Baekhyun and I locked the plan, we waited for the deformed monster to lose interest in me for a heartbeat, and I dropped into the tunnel the tunneling ants had cut in advance. We had already run the obvious version of this. Hundreds of self-destruct ants detonating directly over the thing's head sounds clean on paper. Unless it is firmly pinned before they arrive, its perception and its speed give it an exit at any moment. Pinning something at the very ceiling of its tier long enough for the ants to descend into effective range is not a plan. It is a wish. The time cost was too high, and Baekhyun and the others could not promise it, or rather they put the odds of success at about 20%. If the detonation missed, the whole operation was finished. So I built the other version, which was to detonate from underneath, because soil kills scent and sight both. As long as the four of them were tearing into the monster on the surface with energy spilling everywhere, the noise of that fight would cover any movement below. The underground version also does not demand that they hold it still. It only asks that they keep it busy inside a small footprint. Quiet, cheap, and it does not ask anyone to do the impossible. It does ask for setup. Detonating a mass of self-destruct ants down here without arranging the conditions first just produces a muffled thump 1,000 meters underground. All that energy pushes outward into rock instead of climbing the shaft where I want it. Shaping the blast meant leaving the other four and coming down alone to do the work. It took a few minutes, only a few minutes, and in those few minutes the deformed monster spent the fight playing with them. My ants were carved down to almost nothing, with huge numbers dead or dying, and Baekhyun and the other three were pushed to the edge. 1 or 2 minutes more and there would have been no operation left to run. I finished it with nothing to spare. It has to land. I have done what I can, and the rest belongs to them. I take one last look up the shaft, then launch myself into it and ride the same path the blast just took, climbing hard for the surface. Above, the surface has begun to feel the thing coming. The energy rising through the ground has the shape of a volcano about to open, and the deformed monster is standing precisely on the vent. Even in the middle of a fight that violent, something that close and that large cannot hide, and the monster is not stupid. It snaps into focus and finally understands where the fifth invader went. It says it sees the trick now, that they sent one below to lay a trap, that it very nearly fell for it. Then it asks how an attack this obvious could ever land on a true god. It glances once at the black scythe hunting ants scattered hundreds and thousands of meters out, broken and still, and once at the four humans who look ready to fall over. Then it winds up its own energy to clear the blast zone. The rising force will throw it into the sky within a second or two. A second or two is an eternity to a legendary upper-tier body, more than enough to flicker several hundred meters clear. At that distance, the blast would still bite, but not enough to matter. And if it clears the center, then every hour of planning and every one of those thousands of ants died for nothing. That is the moment Baekhyun, Chungha, and 09 dump every scrap of energy they have left into their trump cards and hurl them at the fleeing monster. Will has no long-range option worth the name, so he does not empty himself the way they do. He throws a 3-meter alloy spear instead, and he throws it hard. Even the deformed monster cannot simply eat that volley without acknowledging it. It tells them they are courting death, and on the very edge of leaving, it plants itself and stops. Baekhyun and the others let out a breath together, a flash of excitement crossing their faces. They tell each other the job is done, and the thing cannot escape now, that it is about to be launched into the sky by my art of explosion. The relief lasts as long as it takes the monster to shudder. A vast fluctuation bursts out of its body, and every attack the four of them just fired freezes about half a meter from its skin, and refuses to go 1 centimeter further. Baekhyun and the others stare, appalled, asking each other whether it can really just stop their attacks dead. One of them says out loud what all of them are thinking, that a thing capable of this was clearly never taking them seriously. Even so, none of them panic much, because they never needed to hurt it. They only needed it to stand still. It does not go that way. A second wave rolls out of the monster, transparent and strange, and the attacks hanging half a meter off its body reverse direction all at once. Their own skills come back at them at full speed, and Baekhyun has time for exactly one thought, that this is skill reflection. Watching their own attacks retrace their flight paths, all 4 of them go cold. Blocking a skill, stopping a skill, and reflecting a skill are 3 separate categories, and each one demands more strength than the last. Stopping their skills had already been shocking, but it still sat inside the borders of what they understood was possible. Sending them back whole and unpaid for does not. Despair settles on their faces. Baekhyun spits that the legendary upper tier cannot be this exaggerated, that it is one small step above legendary mid-tier, and nothing more. Then he corrects himself out loud, because this cannot be raw strength. It has to be an ability from one of the 10 legendary level monsters it swallowed, one it has been sitting on until now. He remembers the one shaped like a moose, the one that never used a single ability from the first exchange to the moment it died. It hid the card well. The monster that owns skill reflection took the secret to its grave, and the deformed monster only spends it here, at the exact instant that costs them the most. None of them accounted for it, and that oversight is why they are standing in this. Baekhyun understands the whole shape of it in one bitter second. Their last volley emptied them. Now that volley hangs above their heads like a reaper's blade. Even if they block it, they will be broken and grounded, lambs waiting for the knife, out of the rest of the fight entirely. Worse, the moment that reflected volley finishes with them, there is nothing left on the field to hold the monster, and it can stroll out of the blast radius at its leisure. 1,000 thoughts, and none of it takes longer than a blink. The skills are already on them. All 4 drag out every defensive measure they own and brace to survive an attack they built themselves. The explosions throw them backward at speed, clothes shredded, exposed skin scorched black. The galaxy takes it badly too, hurled away with its right leg snapped clean off. And even with the pilot protection program running, the impact knocks 09 unconscious in the cockpit. Baekhyun manages to say, mostly to himself, that he is useless, that he promised to hold the ugly thing and broke his word. He is the only one still conscious, and only because he had more resources than the rest, and burned a stack of hidden protective items to buy it. Cheonga is out cold a kilometer away, green light pulsing weakly from her chest, keeping her alive by inches. And under Baekhyun's desperate stare, the deformed monster rises into the sky, and although the blast is already about to break the surface, that sliver of time is all it needed. It is out of the center, just that little bit short. That is what it means to lose at the last step. And Baekhyun is angry enough to bring up blood, close to blacking out on the spot. Then, flat on his back, he sees another shadow appear in the sky above the monster. It has the sun behind it, so the features do not read, only a build that is thick through the shoulders. Then Baekhyun sees the 2 giant battle axes in its hands, and his eyes go wide, because that is Will. He works it out instantly. Will, with no long-range option, never emptied himself the way the rest of them did, and only through a single spear. He had the strength left to be up there. Baekhyun's ruined face manages a flicker of hope, and he thinks that of all people, Will turns out to be the one you can bet on when the hour is bad. The hope dies almost as fast as it came. Baekhyun realizes that even if Will can stop the ugly thing, Will is also going to be standing inside my explosion when it arrives. Will's whole build is attack and slaughter, straight through. His methods are not varied the way the others are, and his escape options are close to non-existent. Hanging in open air with nothing to push off, he almost certainly has not thought about what comes after. Time does not care what anyone wants. It walks forward at the same speed it always has. Up there, the deformed monster, one heartbeat from clearing the blast, notices Will hanging above it and a bad feeling opens in its chest. It is not afraid of Will. What terrifies it is the volcano climbing at it from below. And at a moment like this, even a small delay is lethal. The world will tells itself that humans cling to their lives, that surely this one will not try to drag it down alongside him. It flicks a threat of attack toward Will as it thinks it. In its long life, it has seen human invaders before, so it believes it understands the species. What it does not know is that humans are complicated and wildly various, and that the handful it has met do not stand in for the rest. Some give themselves away for something they think is worth more than staying. Will is not afraid of death, and he is not indifferent to it either. He simply knows he still has something left in him. If he does not step forward now, then his sister, the one person he leans on, and the comrades he has fought beside, all die here. In that single second, there is no room to weigh it out. What moves him is instinct and the oldest impulse he owns. So as the deformed monster reaches for the exit, Will takes the exit away from it. He is a red silhouette by then, blood energy surging over every inch of him, until he is crimson from head to boots. His face is impossible to make out, only those deep eyes full of killing intent, fixed on the monster like it is already a corpse. He tells it they are going down together, and he steps onto that enormous body and brings both blood-red axes down. Will has fired every burst skill he owns and wrung out the last of his life potential, and in that state, nothing in the sky can hold him. He drives a legendary upper-tier monster back toward the ground. Feeling the terror rushing up from below, the deformed monster shrieks at him to get off, the sound coming apart into a scream. Will does not change expression. He plants his foot on it, pins it, and rides it all the way down. Then the fire takes the sky, and everything inside that circle disappears. Baekhyun's eyes go bloodshot as he watches Will bury the monster in the center of the blast, and something desolate goes through him. The pressure wave picks him up from 1,000 meters out and throws him dozens of meters further. Whatever the power is at the center of that thing, it is past what anyone can picture, and Will is sitting in it with the monster. Baekhyun shakes his head hard to stop the pictures forming. The ground betrays them next. This open stretch runs along the sea, and the geology under it is soft, and it cannot hold against a detonation like that. One enormous shudder, one enormous roar, one enormous sheet of flame, and everything within reach is swallowed. Dust and smoke boil up, and the whole surface begins to split and drop. Baekhyun swears that they are about to be buried alive, and he cannot even keep himself out of it. Seong-ha, still unconscious in the distance, is going down with the earth like a leaf on water. 09 is worse off. The galaxy is tall enough to matter, but its weight is preposterous, and all that mass does is speed up the collapse under it. The mech drops into the earth with 09 sealed in the cockpit, sinking faster than either Baekhyun or Cheonga. Baekhyun shouts both their names into the noise and lets go of Will entirely, because not one of them is in a position to help anyone. It is a death trap for the whole team at once, with me still underground and blind to all of it. That makes it a total annihilation scenario, and nothing they have walked into since the day they met comes close. Baekhyun grinds his teeth and squeezes out the last thin trace of energy in his body to activate the magic carpet. As a diamond rank item, its job is not only to float. It carries a faint awareness of its own and can act on that awareness according to the state its owner is in. The instant it is running, Baekhyun has nothing left, not enough to move his smallest finger. He collapses onto it and stares up at the sky while the carpet weaves through the rock and debris raining back down. He tells the three of them, silently, that they had better not be in trouble. Praying is the only tool he has left. He asks where I am and asks me to help them. If the surface took that much damage, he wonders what the underground looks like at the source, and what happened to the man who was standing down there. Rationally, he does not like my odds at all. Emotionally, he expects me to walk out of it anyway, because I have never once let him down. While he sits inside that mix of despair and expectation, several dark shapes streak past him faster than the carpet can fly on its own, and close the distance in an instant. Something powerful wraps around him. A second later, he is unconscious, aware only of being carried somewhere he cannot see. 1,000 meters down, I watch the ceiling of the world shake and start to come apart, and I have to swear out loud. The ground could not take the intensity, and it is collapsing outright. When I built the blasting environment, I accounted for the stability of the shaft, and the shaft did hold through the detonation exactly as designed. What I did not account for was the deformed monster taking the full brunt of it. Plugging the center of the blast with its own body sent a share of the force sideways into the earth instead of straight up. That share is now eating the entire surface, and the collapse is racing down toward me faster than I can climb. I do not intend to be buried alive 1,000 meters underground. I tell the tunneling ants beside me to take me out through the side, and they answer at once and move. Those many pairs of oddly shaped abdominal legs all beat together, tearing through packed mud and rock at a speed that has no business belonging to a body that size. The big tunneling ant swims through the earth like a fish through water, utterly unbothered by the churning collapse around it, shoving the strata aside and hauling me toward daylight. It crosses 1,000 meters in a dozen seconds and breaks through, and I come out of the hole right behind it. Only a few minutes have passed since I dropped underground to set the charge, and the world I climb back into is not the one I left. Baekhyun, Seong-ha, and 09 have been wrecked by the reflection ability. Will has ridden the deformed monster into the heart of my detonation. The ground is a collapsed ruin of fire and flying grit and rolling stone, and I cannot see clearly in any direction. I cannot find any of them, and that puts a cold hand on the back of my neck. My gaze sharpens, and my chest tightens, because the scene is bad enough that not only my people but even a legendary upper-tier deformed monster is showing no movement at all. Whatever the four of them paid to keep that thing in the box, it was enormous. I call Swift Shadow and tell her to find Baekhyun and the others immediately, and that their lives are the only thing on the list. Through the whole battle, Swift Shadow stayed on the surface, directing the antlines with a calm I could hear even from underground. Hundreds and then thousands of her kin were maimed or killed in front of her, and she never once stepped out from behind the screen. Every order she gave was precise, and every ant she spent was spent to buy the largest possible return. As an ant queen, she has no mercy in her, and no morality either. Only one conviction that the yield and the outcome belong to me. Her tribe's deaths serve my goals, and through my goals they serve better evolution. She also knows exactly how much she is worth to me, which is why she would never do something stupid like getting swept up in the fight, intervening in person, or walking into a trap. She is the commander, and nothing outranks keeping the commander alive. That cold competence is the only reason the worst outcome did not land on us today. She tells me to set my mind at ease. She had already spread sentry ants out across the area, and she has moved Baekhyun and Chungha to safety. So the dark shape that lifted Baekhyun off the collapsing ground was a sentry ant, and Chungha was pulled clear the same way before the earth took her. In a fight at that intensity, sentry ants are assassin types with no way to contribute at all, so Swift Shadow simply withdrew them to the rear and kept them idle. That decision saved 2 lives. Cold heads win more than brave ones, and I have never regretted naming her. The relief lasts about as long as it takes me to count. Only 2 of the 4 are accounted for, and I ask about 09 and Will. Swift Shadow answers that 09 is inside the mech's cockpit and went down into the earth along with it. Just before she dropped, Swift Shadow ordered another rescue attempt, but the cockpit shell was too tough for her kin to open, and they could only watch her be carried under by the galaxy. Hearing that the deformed monster never touched her, I let out part of a breath. I watched that mech get built from the first frame, and I have absolute confidence in what it can take. Even peak diamond rank sentry ants cannot cut through its outer shell. Buried or not, her life is not in immediate danger. On top of that, she installed an emergency rescue system in the galaxy, and once it triggers, it supplies the cockpit with oxygen, power, and a way out. Suffocating underground is not on the list of things I need to worry about. So I ask about Will, and why he was not rescued, and whether that means he was not injured. I do not want to think the other thing. It is easier to assume he came out clean, and that is why Swift Shadow never sent anyone. Swift Shadow pauses for a full second before she answers, and tells me that Will is not unharmed. Something in my chest drops. I ask her, and my voice is not steady, to tell me exactly what Will's situation is. She flies in from a distance and settles on my shoulder, points toward the blast center, and lays out what happened in a few short lines. To stop the deformed monster carrying the world will from escaping, Will opened every burst skill he had. He forced the thing down by main strength and rode it into the center of the explosion on the ground. I understood the situation might be dire. I did not understand it was that. Nobody knows my self-destruct ants better than I do. At the center of that detonation, 10 lives would not have been enough for Will. I would only be confident of surviving it myself by burning my last resort skill, damage transfer, and even then I would not enjoy it. My mind goes white for a moment, and every stretch of road I have walked with Will comes back at once. Will telling me he had a few suitable beasts I could use to stock my farm. Will telling me to just come find him if I needed anything. That he had plenty of that serum. Will hearing the word battle and saying it was no problem. That he would be right over. Will apologizing and asking me for a little time, promising he would tell me. I say his name and tell him he absolutely cannot die, and my voice comes out shredded, my teeth clenched hard enough that I bite through my own lip. Then my fists close, my body moves, and I am gone from where I stood, straight into the still burning center where the heat comes off the ground in sheets. Swift Shadow feels the state I am in and starts to say something, then thinks better of it and changes course, telling me she will help me search. She spins the whole information net woven by countless sentry ants over the blast zone and layers it thick. She holds it together against the interference boiling off all that loose energy, sweeping every inch of the center. Everything she picks up she pushes to me through the species contract. It is like having a thermal life detector open behind my eyes, and I can suddenly see through the smoke and fire to the shapes lying in it. The first thing I recognize is a head. An elephant head 5 or 6 meters tall, shattered, only half of it left. That was one of the original 10 monsters the world will blessed into legendary rank strength. After it died, the world will folded it into the deformed monster as a major part of the chest. Now it is lying out here. If the chest and the head that made up that thing were blown apart this thoroughly, then the deformed monster is severely injured at the very least. There is a real chance it died on the spot. I never doubted what my self-destruct ants could do, so the result does not surprise me. What it does is make the knot in my stomach tighter, because I feel nothing at all about crippling a formidable enemy right now. A legendary upper-tier body could not eat that blast. Its chest was reduced to fragments. So what happened to Will? No. Until Will is found, until I have seen it myself, there is still hope, and I refuse to run the other calculation. He is going to be fine. I shake the thought loose, get my spine back, and keep walking through the burn, looking for any sign of life. A deer's head, a wolf's head, a horse's head, an ox's head. The further I go, the more of them turn up. Every one of them from the 10 legendary level monsters. Each served as some critical organ inside the deformed monster, and every one of them is now scattered and torn open. The flames around me are still roaring, and my chest gets colder with each one I pass. Then I find a huge head with a long mane, and that one is the lion's head that formed the deformed monster's own skull. It is still glaring, eyes wide, snorting hard through its nose, its whole face packed with resentment. That vitality is genuinely impressive. Nothing left but a head, and it is still here. My eyes go cold and I put out my left hand, and a longbow forms in it out of nothing. I draw, knock, and aim. The lion's head feels the energy building on the warbow and panics. It tells me I cannot do this, that it is the one true God of this entire world, that I am killing a god. I let the bluster wash past me while the dragon chi arrow on the string thickens. Then it changes register and says it surrenders, and asks whether I did not hear it surrender. It says it has surrendered and I should let it go, then breaks off and offers to acknowledge me as its master, if I will only stop. Gods negotiate quickly when they run out of body. I do not answer any of it. The dragon chi arrow leaves the string and cuts through the firelight straight into the lion's head. If the deformed monster were still whole, with a legendary upper tier defense wrapped around it, that shot would not have scratched the surface. What is in front of me is a mangled head on its last thread, at the point where a stray black iron rank beast could finish it. My attack sits at the upper diamond rank level. It is enough to kill this thing 10 times over. It gets out 2 words before the roar drowns it. The lion's head blows apart into wet fragments across the ground, and as it goes, the last trace of the deformed monster's consciousness in this world dissolves with it. Specks of light begin gathering in the firelight where the head used to be, drawing together into the shape of a crystal. A voice comes out of nowhere and tells me that a creature endorsed by the world will has been killed, and that a world core is condensing. It tells me the world core can be activated to return to the dark world. I stop and look at the thing forming there, about the size of a fist, rhomboid glowing orange-yellow in the reflected fire. So this is the world core of this world. The deformed monster was a creature merged with the world will, and it was the last endorsed creature standing, and by everything we were told, killing it should have produced exactly this. Activate the core and we go home. Looking at that small piece of crystal, I cannot get any satisfaction out of it. We paid too much. My ant reserves are gutted, Baekhyun and the others are broken, and Will is still missing. I put the orange-yellow core into my storage ring and keep searching. I call his name and keep calling it. With the sentry ant's shared vision feeding me, my search runs fast, and inside a few minutes I have covered the whole surrounding area. The flames from the blast have mostly burned themselves out by then, though the ground is still hot enough that my skin scorches black even at my strength. I do not care about the burning. What has me cold is that I swept everything and Will is not in it. My ominous read of this gets stronger. Hundreds of diamond-grade self-destruct ants going off at once tore a legendary upper-tier body into pieces, and Will's physical strength is nowhere near that. He could not have been blown into. No, absolutely not. And then the logic catches up with the fear, because even if Will had been reduced to ash, I would still be finding organs, cells, tissue, a smear of blood. Something. There is nothing here at all. No information is not the same as bad news. It is the best news available, and it means he still has a thread. I pull myself together and push the search outward, thinking as I go. Swift Shadow said that just as the blast was about to break the surface, Will forced the escaping deformed monster back down to the ground, and the detonation went off right then, which means Will was standing on top of it. If the monster took the brunt of the blast, then Will, behind it and never directly facing the front of the wave, might have had a shot. The more I turn it over, the more it holds. I speed up and work outward from the center. If the monster shielded him, he still ate an enormous amount of impact, and with the force those ants put out, he would have been thrown a very long way. I cannot calculate the number, so I do it the crude way, a carpet sweep expanding from the crater. 1,000 meters, 2,000, 3,000. At 3,000 meters, I still have nothing, and the hope I just talked myself into starts thinning out again. I stop where I am and ask myself out loud whether I read it wrong. Then Swift Shadow's voice arrives and tells me her kin have found Will. While I was walking my grid, thousands of sentry ants were running their own, covering the collapsed underground pockets and the open water past the cliff as well. I ask where he is and whether he is all right. She reports that they found him on the sea surface 5,000 meters out. His body is in terrible condition, almost every bone broken, and no ability to walk, but there is still a trace of life in him. Still breathing, that is all I needed. As long as there is a thread of breath left in a man, the healing items in the dark world can do the rest. Broken bones look horrifying without actually being a problem for people with our resources. I run for the coast. The sentry ants have already fished him out and laid him on the shore, and Will looks like something with no skeleton at all. His arms and legs are bent into angles that make my jaw tighten. His skin is split open everywhere, and blood keeps weeping out of the capillaries until he is crimson from head to foot. An ordinary person died a long time ago in this state. Will's vitality is far past ordinary, which is the only reason there is still a faint pull of air in him. It is thin as a wisp of smoke, a candle guttering in wind that could take it at any second. I do not waste time. I call in light healing ants and order them to fire light healing ray and hold his life together no matter what it costs. It is not only Will who needs them. My ant corps took catastrophic losses today, and light healing ants are my medics, which makes them the scarcest thing I own. Pulling this handful over here means some of my wounded ants will die for lack of treatment. I cannot afford to care about that right now. Without Will, we would all be finished. So if saving him costs me, then it costs me, and I will pay whatever the number is. 5 light healing ants take up station in the air around him and pour golden light healing ray across his limbs and his frame. The beams run up and down, patching organs on the inside and skin on the outside. His injuries are far past what 5 ants at less than full strength can actually close. Even so, the change is visible without instruments. The splits in his skin start knitting and scabbing over. The seeping stops, and his breathing firms up from a candle in the wind to a candle in a closed room. He is no longer 1 bad second from dying. I finally let my shoulders come down. His life is bought. My own recovery items are thin on the ground though, and getting him actually whole means going back for Baekhyun and Cheongha. Baekhyun carries an absurd variety of gear including plenty of healing items. Cheongha has built her whole path on plant cultivation, and she knows medicinal herbs deeply enough to count as a healer in her own right. Next to those two, all I have is a pile of common healing items I picked up along the way, and a few healing pills Sun Weepung refined for me. My kit is limited, and I know it. I take a red pill out of my storage ring and press it into Will's mouth. When the gray in his face gives way to a little color, I get a piece of my smile back. The losses were heavy, but everyone is alive. People are the only asset that matters, and as long as the people are still here, the rest comes back. Whatever this world ends up yielding, everyone walking out of it is the number I care about. Now I go find Baekhyun and the others and start working on their injuries. Every single person except me is severely injured and unconscious, so hunting for resources or studying this different world can wait. I put the sentry ants and the tunneling ants on locating Baekhyun, 09, and Cheongha. The sentry ants bring Baekhyun and Cheongha in fast. Cheongha is still under, and Baekhyun never took a serious wound at all. He just fainted from running his energy to empty. His body has been quietly pulling energy back out of the environment ever since, so he is shaky but awake and talking. He shouts to ask how Will is before he is even close, and his face is stretched tight with worry. He watched the whole thing, Will landing on the deformed monster, cutting off its retreat with 2 axes, then dragging it down into the center. Just remembering the size of that blast puts a chill through him. He has been assuming the worst since he woke up. I smile and point at Will lying on the stretcher, and tell him Will is right there, badly hurt, but in no danger of dying. Baekhyun closes the last of the distance, sees Will's chest rising and falling, and lets out a breath that goes on for a while. Then, exactly on cue, the frivolous version of him comes back online. He says Will was completely reckless, that the man actually pinned that ugly thing and rode it into the center of the explosion. And then, in the same breath, that it was unbelievably cool. He slaps his thigh and demands to know when he is ever going to get a moment like that, looking down at Will with open worship and open envy. He does not forget the part that matters. He digs through his personal stash and comes up with 5 or 6 kinds of healing gear in short order. Oral medicines, ointments for external use, and a couple of treatment instruments. He works through the whole lot on Will 1 item at a time until every one of them is spent. Then he steps back, nods at his own work, claps the dust off his hands and pronounces it done. Will is now wrapped in bandages from end to end like a mummy, with 3 green spheres hovering beside him pouring green light over his body. It is not pretty. It works, because Will's limp frame is already beginning to straighten. Seeing the recovery headed the right direction, I stop bracing quite so hard and tell Baekhyun he keeps some very good stuff, since the effect is obvious. He preens and says of course he does, then asks whether I even know who I am talking to. He explains that the ointments and instruments are aimed at bone repair specifically, and that the internal damage in Will's organs is beyond anything he can treat. The deformed monster shielded Will from most of the blast, but the residual impact alone threw the man over 5,000 meters, and he came within a hair of dying instantly. Nothing about that unwinds easily. Baekhyun reads the worry on my face and grins again, telling me not to fret. Internal injuries are not his specialty, but they are Cheongha's, and once she wakes up, Will be fine. That settles me, and I look over at Cheongha lying nearby. She is still unconscious, and our noise has not reached her, and her face has a pale cast to it. But there is an emerald leaf resting on her chest that keeps vibrating, and every time it does, her color comes up a little more. At that rate, she will not be under much longer. Baekhyun says he knows what that is, that it is Cheongha's world tree and Cheongha together, through their mutual aid contract. When she takes serious damage, it restores her fast, and as long as she is not killed outright, it can heal even the worst of it perfectly. That surprises me. I did not know the world tree had a method like that in it, though I suppose a life form capable of forming a world of its own is allowed to be miraculous. Then Baekhyun remembers 09 and asks why he has not seen her, worry climbing back into his voice. I am not worried at all, because my tunneling ants and sentry ants found her a while ago. I tell him she is safe and simply stuck inside her cockpit, and that my ants cannot force that shell open, so the sensible thing is to let her come around on her own. Baekhyun says that if 09 is fine too, then everyone survived, and the breath he lets out could power a sail. He curses cheerfully that the whole thing was too thrilling for words, that this is only a red-level world and the difficulty is already this high, and that it is frankly unreasonable. I nod because it was thrilling, and the world's overall strength landed well outside what we expected. I tell him what I have been chewing on, that we have only just cleared the bar for entering a different world at all, and that easily conquering one is still a long way off. At a minimum, we need to be at legendary rank. He agrees with that. Diamond rank and legendary rank are one rank apart on paper and a canyon apart in practice. On top of that, every monster we met here was legendary upper tier, so the rank suppression alone was brutal. He points out that without my self-destruct ants we would have struggled to break their defense at all, and says it is a good thing we picked the lowest tier red level world to test the water. He says that if they had gone into something harder, their graves would already have grass on them. I nod, and keep going. Conquering a different world cannot be rushed, and although the losses were heavy this time, the trip is not a write-off. A world that produces this many high-level monsters is a world sitting on resources, and stripping it properly should recover a large share of what we spent. More importantly, after a fight at that intensity, I asked Baekhyun whether his understanding of power has moved. I did not stand in front of the deformed monster at the worst of it, but my ants were on the line the entire time, and I took the largest loss of my life today. I am bound to them by the mutual aid contract and by the heart of the Lord both, and their desperate struggle fed straight back into my own comprehension of power. I was already one step from tier 3. After this fight, the distance feels like a sheet of paper as thin as a cicada's wing, and a few days of quiet meditation should be all it takes. Baekhyun goes still for a second when I bring it up, because since waking from his coma, he has been worrying about everyone else, and never once checked himself. He does it now. Then the delight breaks across his face and he nods over and over, saying he is about 1/10 of the way from tier 3 and should break through soon. I smile and tell him Cheongha and the others are probably in the same neighborhood, all of them closing on tier 3, and that the breakthrough should come for the whole team before long. I add the part he will not like. Reaching tier 3 is not the same as reaching legendary rank, and lifting our ranks that far will take a serious pile of resources and a serious amount of time. Realistically, half a month at least before every one of us is legendary rank. He shrugs and says half a month is already outrageous speed, then marvels at the idea of an entire team at legendary rank. He asks whether there is another squad in the whole dark world that's strong. I shake my head and tell him not to jinx it, since we do not have a single legendary rank among us yet, and we should stay humble a little longer. I tell him what I suspect, that the minimum rank for conquering these different worlds is legendary rank. We have essentially been fighting above our weight class, which is precisely why it hurt this much. He nods with the fear still fresh on him, and says that sounds very likely. He says our strength puts us near the front of the entire dark world, and that since even we nearly got wiped out, anyone else charging into a different world will die badly. Once the whole team hits legendary rank and the tier suppression stops applying, a red level world at this intensity should be manageable. He decides that a different world really must be built for legendary rank only. Then he gets indignant and asks what kind of dark world hands out no hints at all. He wonders whether it is not afraid that every elite it painstakingly filtered out will end up buried in some different world. I stay quiet for a moment, then tell him the truth as I see it. Perhaps it does not care. He looks at me confused and repeats the phrase back. I nod, and I am not smiling now. It does not care. To the dark world we are insignificant, and the races it plundered before us were almost none of them weaker than humanity. It is entirely possible we are the frailest thing it has ever taken. Strip away our intelligence and the human body is simply feeble. Why would something that scale spend a thought on whether we live or die? Opacity may be part of the filter itself. Keeping us ignorant is how it sorts us. Having seen what a red level world actually contains, I understand the dark world better than I did yesterday. Its world consciousness does not merely issue announcements and hand out tasks. It reshapes entire environments on a whim, dropping a vortex that erases everything across tens of thousands of areas, and it does that in the time it takes to blink. Then there are the places we still cannot explain at all, the Black Tower and the rest of them, and we have no clue what any of that is for. If we ever turned around and tried to conquer the dark world, it would not need a strategy. It would put a vortex down beside us and that would be the end of the discussion. If the dark world's full strength is a grown adult in his prime, then this red world is not even an infant. It is a placenta. Baekhyun takes offense on humanity's behalf and says the whole arrangement is inhuman, insisting that humans are strong and carry far more potential than those strange creatures. I tell him to let it go, since thinking about it changes nothing, and at our current strength all we can do is react. Behind us, metal parts start grinding against each other. I turn around with my mood lifting and see the galaxy sitting there scorched and caked in mud, shivering. The damage is too deep, so it only gets halfway up before dropping back down hard, throwing a cloud of dust, and then it goes still. A second later, hydraulics let go somewhere inside, and the cockpit shield swings slowly open on the small figure sitting in it. 09. She is in a silver-white rubber combat suit and drenched head to foot in clear nutrient fluid. Her twin ponytails clumped into wet strands. That tells me the emergency treatment system in the cockpit did its job. That fluid is the only reason she is awake this fast. Awake is a generous word for it, though, because her face has no color and her body has nothing left. Not even enough to work her own harness. She leans back against the combat seat and breathes shallowly. I see the problem from below and clear the distance in one jump, landing beside her. Her eyes light up when she sees me, and she asks about Will in a voice with almost nothing behind it. I tell her not to worry, that Will is alive and healing, and I ask whether she needs help. She says she does not, that she can do it herself. Her gray-white eyes flick over me and she braces up and starts fighting the harness with her own strength. Gets herself halfway upright and drops straight back into the seat. That attempt is over. Her pale cheeks color a little and she turns her head away, still stubborn as ever. I do not bother asking her opinion a second time, and I hit the harness release from the side. The belt across her chest springs free and retracts without any argument at all. With the restraint gone, she immediately starts sliding sideways, and the cabin door is open, and even lying half collapsed on the ground, the Galaxy is over 10 meters tall. In her condition, that fall would put her back on a stretcher, so I scoop her up before it can happen and carry her down out of the air. She is flustered and does not say so. She looks back at the wrecked mech with visible reluctance, and I tell her to fix her body first, and then, once she is recovered, she can come fix the Galaxy. She agrees quietly. Back on the ground, Baekhyun has a healing potion ready and hands it straight over, telling her she is awake and should drink up. He also cannot resist telling her that Will was incredibly cool out there, a genuine highlight, and that the man really showed off this time. She takes the potion, drinks it, and nods once. Baekhyun knows her quiet nature well enough by now that he does not mind the lack of an answer at all. He asks what my plan is next, spoils of war or something else. I tell him the first order of business is to sweep this different world clean. With no enemies left to interfere, it is a good window to study the rules and the characteristics of a different world properly, in case we need that knowledge later. Once we have learned enough, we go home. None of it is urgent, so we wait until Cheongha and Will are awake and move as a group. Killing the world will of this place does not guarantee nothing else here can hurt us, and we are all weak right now, so we recover first and act second. Baekhyun says that works, and adds that it gives him a chance to consolidate what he picked up in the fight. Then he grins and tells me that maybe this time he beats me to it and becomes the first on the team to reach Tier 3. I smile and tell him he had better work hard then. Day rolls into night and back into day, and a full day is gone. I took almost no damage, so my condition came back early, but I am in no rush to go exploring. Instead, I sit cross-legged and start working on my comprehension of power, pushing for the Tier 3 breakthrough. A day of treatment and rest puts Baekhyun and 09 back near their peak. 09 has already changed into a gray work uniform and is out there directing a swarm of assorted robots over the galaxy, the crackle of electric welding going non-stop. Cheongha and Will are another matter. Both of them are still comatose with no sign at all of surfacing, and the state they are in has gone from concerning to genuinely strange. The green world tree source leaf on Cheongha's chest has been growing, extending, spreading, until it has covered her entirely. Her whole body is wound and wrapped in leaf veins, and she is close to being bundled into a shape like a cocoon, a huge silkworm chrysalis with a woman inside it. Baekhyun, watching it happen, cannot decide whether to be worried or impressed. He says it is only a leaf from the world tree and it has parceled Cheongha up like a wrapped bundle, and asks how strong the life force in one leaf has to be. I point out that he is the one who told me it is the source leaf of the world tree, so vitality like that is not exactly out of character. He concedes the point, says the world tree's level of life is simply too high, and grumbles that Cheongha's luck is heaven-defying. Then he looks over at Will, with envy still on his face, and the envy fades. Will is stranger than she is. He lies there motionless with his eyes shut, which by itself would just be an ordinary coma after severe injury. The odd part is his breathing, which has gone so faint it is nearly absent, and it has stayed that way for a solid day. When we first saw him like this, it frightened all of us. We thought he was slipping away and we poured every healing potion we had into him for a while, and nothing we did changed the state one bit. If my sentry ants had not been reporting that his life signs were good, and not merely good but steadily strengthening on a clean upward curve, I would have run out of ideas entirely. Baekhyun finally asks me straight out what I think is going on with Cheongha and Will. He says they were badly hurt, but not this badly, and he wants to know why neither of them has woken up. He is right to find it odd. Creatures at upper diamond rank strength carry enormous vitality, and short of a high-level energy suppression blocking recovery outright, no conventional injury, however severe, should leave one of us unconscious a full day later. I could not work it out either. I frown and stare at the two of them for a while, and then a strange feeling comes over me and my eyes come up on their own. I have to hold the excitement down before I speak, but I tell him I think I know what is happening to them. Baekhyun tenses immediately and asks whether Cheongha and Will could be carrying some hidden injury. I shake my head and smile and tell him not to worry, that this is not a bad thing at all. In fact, it is a very good one. He repeats the words back at me with relief pushing out of him and confusion right behind it. I nod and confirm it. They are already in a perfectly healthy state. The reason neither of them has woken is that their comprehension of power has reached its peak, and they have gone straight into the state of advancing toward Tier 3. Baekhyun is completely stunned. He had been counting on being the first among us to break through, and now, before he has even started, he has become the third.